Good evening. Let's first make sure that we're all in the right room. This is a meeting of the East Brunswick Joint Steering Committee on Resource Recovery. It's a continuation of a meeting which began in February of this year, at which time Wheelabrator Frye made a presentation and questions were asked by the public and to a limited extent by the committee. At that time, there were a number of people who felt that they hadn't had an adequate opportunity to ask questions, and we promised you there would be another opportunity for you to do so. And tonight is that opportunity. Just to bring you up to date, since February, not a great deal has happened with the application. It has not been submitted to the state, and as such, there hasn't been a great deal for the committee to direct its attention to, although we have stayed very close to the process as it's continued. Now, in order to maximize the number of participants this evening, I'd like to set down some ground rules for the question and answer portion, which I think we can be somewhat flexible about if it turns out that there aren't a great many people who would like to ask questions. If there are, we'd like to adhere to them rather strictly so that the maximum number of people can participate. Now, those rules will be as follows. Speakers will not be selected. If you line up on that side of the room, you'll be able to come to the microphone, which is in the front, and ask your questions and receive answers from the Wheelabrator Frye representatives. And if you have any questions for the committee or the committee staff, who are also here, you can do that as well. When you do come to the microphone, please state your name and address so that we can identify you. Now, again, in order to allow as many people as possible to ask questions, please take each opportunity at the microphone to ask only one question. And if you have more questions to ask, then return to the end of the line, come to the front again, and ask your next question. Unlike the last meeting, I'm not going to limit what you say to questions. If you have a statement you'd like to make, if you'd like to challenge something that has been said earlier, feel free to do so. But each time you come to the microphone, I'll limit you to 3 minutes, and you can use those 3 minutes for any purpose, as well as to ask one question. Now, on the Wheelabrator side, the answers will also be limited to 3 minutes. And in that way, I hope that we can get a great deal more questions and more answers than we did in February. One thing I want to avoid, if at all possible, are the kind of debates we seem to get into in our earlier meeting. That steals a lot of time away from other people who would like to have an opportunity to speak. And if we can stay with the single question, single answer format, I think that'll go a long way toward making this an efficient and productive meeting. Now, the only people who aren't going to have to adhere to the rules are the committee members. We did not take the opportunity at our last meeting to ask many questions at all of Wheelabrator because we wanted to make that time available to the public. I'm going to permit the committee members to more or less jump in, and if they'll indicate that they want to ask a question, I'll recognize them and they can do so, and follow up on a question that might have been asked by a member of the public, perhaps clarify something that's been said, or perhaps challenge something that's been said. They may also ask questions which are somewhat different than those which have already been asked. I think perhaps we'll all gain from that. It's my intention to close the meeting at 10:45. That'll give us a few minutes between 10:45 and 11 if we have to put together some last-minute details together. I'm going to turn the meeting over now to Mr. Ferrante, who heads up the project for Wheelabrator. And perhaps you'd like to introduce the people that you have here with you, and you can begin at any time lining up on that side of the room to ask questions.
Thank you, Dave. As the chairman indicated, this is a continuation of the previous meeting, so what we tried to do is reassemble the same group of people, and have the same subject areas with perhaps a different face associated with it that we had at the earlier meeting. So what I'd like to do is introduce to you the people who will be the resource panel for us to respond to your questions. To my right is John Kehoe, who is Senior Vice President, Business Development for Wheelabrator Energy Systems Division. To his right is Ron Broglio, who is Vice President, Engineering for Wheelabrator Energy Systems. To Ron's right is Dan Madigan, who is General Manager of RESCO, the Refuse Energy Systems Company, our plant up in Saugus, Massachusetts. And to Dan's right is Nat Reese, Professor of Meteorology at Cook College, Rutgers. The row behind us, on the far right, is Richard Peluso, who is Senior Vice President of Warren Engineering. That company, you may recall, was responsible for coordinating the preliminary environmental impact report that we have provided the township for review. To Rich's left is Gary McAtee, who is a Senior Environmental Scientist with Warren Engineering. To Gary's left is Jim Peters, who is Manager of Research and Development for Wheelabrator's Air Pollution Control Division. And to Jim's left is Chris Ganatis, who is Manager of Environmental Sciences for Wheelabrator Energy Systems Group. That's our group, and we're ready to have the questions.
My name is Dan Gilbert. I live at 55 Tall Oaks Drive here in East Brunswick, New Jersey. Just a question, if I may, and it won't take more than 3 minutes. But I have a series of questions. They're all in the same context. There won't be any debate.
Well, if they can be answered with a single answer, I think that'll be all right.
Question. As municipal garbage is burned, are dioxins formed?
We've had, and we can address our remarks specifically to our own experience at the Saugus plant, where we have conducted tests to date. And for the answer, I'd like to turn it over to both Ron Broglio and Dan Madigan, who have been involved in the programs at the Saugus plant.
Excuse me, before you do, I'd appreciate it if you have a series of questions on one subject area, if you could ask them all.
Thank you.
So that they can respond to them all at once.
Fine. Okay, that's the first question. Then I'd like to know at what temperatures are dioxins formed. We'd like to know if, in fact, the Saugus plant was tested, by whom, when. We'd like to know whether or not the committee could have a copy of the results. We'd like to know if anyone in the state of Massachusetts has seen those results. People like Bill St. Hilaire, Regional Engineer, District Health Office, John Fitzgerald, who's his regional engineer, Joe Tabby, who's the Saugus health agent. We'd like to know when the Saugus plant was actually placed in operation, the date. We'd like to know what the general cancer rate was in Saugus per 100,000 people at that time. We'd like to know what the cancer rate in Saugus is today.
Chairman, if I could interrupt, why don't we do it, I'm not good at shorthand, so why don't we take one at a time?
Well, I think
there's a long list.
That's going to end up being, I think, a half-hour answer. And perhaps we could stop with what you've asked so far. Let the gentlemen use their 3 minutes to try to answer you, and you can come back and ask again if you like.
Okay. Our response is going to be limited to our experience at Saugus. I don't believe we're going to get into the more theoretical questions about when dioxin is formed or at what temperatures they're formed, because that's a subject for considerable academic debate at the moment. But what we will try to respond is on the basis of facts that we have established on the basis of our own operating experience, because I think that's something we can speak with some authority on. So I will ask Dan and Ron, as you want to coordinate the response, to cover that subject area.
I think we can address the first question, which do we have dioxins from a refuse plant? The only way we can respond to that at this time is to relay the information we have from testing our plant at Saugus. We have conducted initial testing for dioxin, and you must realize that the testing procedures and instrumentation for this test are very complex. The levels to which we're looking for the dioxin itself are very, very minute. The testing equipment utilized during our testing had a tolerance level of 70 parts per trillion. Now that's a very, very minute quantity. At that level, we detected no dioxins at the Saugus stack emission point. One of the keys to the method of handling a plant like Saugus is a high temperature, high turbulent combustion zone. And we believe that successfully destroys the major pollutants. Dan, who has operated the plant, maybe can give you additional insight from an operating standpoint.
There was several other questions asked. Number one, Bill St. Hilaire from the DEQE, Joe Tappy from the Saugus Board of Health, John Fitzgerald from the DEQE have discussed dioxins with me on occasion, but have never requested any information on it. Just asked, are you people doing anything in that area? And I said, yes. I meet quite frequently with these people. I'm not sure of what the cancer rate was in Saugus before the plant started up. I'm not sure what it is right now. The plant went into operation in October of 1975. One thing that I am sure of is that we have a very efficient and effective combustion technology in place at Saugus, and do a very good job in that area. With furnace exit temperatures at 1,800 degrees, and temperatures down in the combustion zone as high as 3,100, averaging 22 to 2,400 degrees.
My name is Dave Lipsky. I reside in East Brunswick at 29 Kings Road. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I believe that you and Wheelabrator Frye think that your proposal to build a waste incinerator in East Brunswick is environmentally sound. You prefer to call it resource recovery, and in fact, you wrote a letter to the Sentinel endorsing recycling of garbage several weeks ago. But your process is not recycling, and I don't think it's environmentally sound. We've already spoken about, or my predecessor spoke about, the burning of household garbage producing dioxin. A news item dated June 20th, 1983, which appeared in Hazard Line, a toxicological, immunological database, reported that human exposure to low levels of dioxin can cause a reaction in which the immune system is suppressed, similar to AIDS. Up until now, the chemical industry has maintained that exposure to low levels of dioxin is not harmful. This report indicates otherwise. I'd like to know what you intend to do to ensure that your proposed project emits zero dioxin, not 70 parts per trillion, and zero harmful chemicals at all times. This includes the byproducts of commingled toxic and domestic garbage. You must be aware that charges made recently by a federally protected witness state that organized crime is illegally commingling toxic waste with the garbage disposed of at Edgeboro Landfill.
Okay, let me take it from the top. The assertion that the plant does not perform recycling. It's true that conversion of the organic fraction into energy is not under law and under some of the regulations classified as materials recycling. Okay, that's a given. It's a granted point. However, the plant does engage in recycling in the form of recycling the ferrous scrap that's recovered after the combustion process. As a matter of fact, in Saugus, we've recycled and marketed well in excess of 100,000 tons of iron since the plant has been in operation. For the East Brunswick project, we have established a commitment from a local steel mill to purchase the full annual output of recovered iron scrap, which is about 25,000 tons a year. That is a very significant amount of recycling if you'll check the state records that have recently been compiled on the basis of the state recycling law. The plant does, in that respect, perform recycling. However, I think the point that we tried to make in the letter to the papers was that the plant is compatible with recycling efforts and that glass recycling, newspaper recycling, corrugated, all are perfectly compatible with the establishment of this type of facility. there's really no inherent conflict between materials recycling done at the local level, at source separation points, and the construction of these plants. The point about the dioxin, to ensure that we don't emit 70 parts per trillion, I think misinterprets the facts that were just stated. We found none at the level of 70 parts per trillion. That was the detection limit of the equipment that we employed in examining the stack. So we didn't find any at 70 parts per trillion. The issue about commingling hazardous and non-hazardous waste troubles everyone. We feel that we have established a procedure at our plant in Saugus which reduces that risk to a great extent. I'd like Dan to comment on the way, from an operating standpoint, we address the issue of commingled waste. First, let me make one point. It's not to our advantage as an operator of a plant that handles municipal solid waste to handle hazardous waste. It destroys the equipment, it's hazardous to our employees, and there really is no incentive for us to do it. However, we are mindful of the facts that you speak of, and Dan can talk to some of the operating safeguards that we employ.
You have 10 seconds to do that.
10 seconds. At Saugus, we have a joint venture program with the local Board of Health, the State Department of Environmental and Quality Engineering, and the Enforcement Division, which is the Department of Marine Fisheries right now. We have 3 different groups that come in and periodically inspect trucks that may possibly contain hazardous waste. It's very difficult to identify hazardous waste. We make every effort to look very closely at any open containers that come into the plant and any trucks that we know to do business in the commercial area.
I'm afraid your time's up.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Mark Lightman. I'm a physician in town in East Brunswick. I'm going to make a statement about the siting of this plant. I've done extensive research on this area, and I found it to be probably the most toxic place in the United States of America where you're planning to build this plant, and the following statistics back it up. Of the 409 sites in the United States cited by the EPA for immediate cleanup by the Superfund, 65 were in New Jersey. Middlesex County headed the list. Of the garbage buried now, the waste buried in New Jersey, most of it is done at 10 landfills in New Jersey, at 10 large landfills. 3 of the 10 large landfills are in Middlesex County. Again, they've zapped it to Middlesex County. Not only toxic sites, but also sanitary landfills, so-called sanitary. Next, right in an area less than about a half a square mile sits Edgeboro landfill, where Wheelabrator is supposed to be. It's the 2nd largest landfill in the state. What's been buried there over the years is well documented. Hundreds of thousands of gallons of the most toxic materials. This is all in the congressional record. Oil spills, 27,000 pounds of formaldehyde, arsenic. Everything's been buried in the Edgeboro landfill. A half a mile from the site of Wheelabrator is the Kinbuck landfill, 150,000 gallons of the most toxic chemicals. Next to that is industrial land reclaiming, the 6th largest landfill in New Jersey. Next to that is Edison landfill. Next to that is Stouffer Chemical, recently cited by the EPA for a study of dioxin. Next to that is Newadex Chemical, which produces vinyl chloride. Now for the zinger. This all sits on top, the hottest spot in the United States of America sits on top of the Farrington Sands Aquifer and is noted by everybody to be the recharge area that we're drinking. Who gets the water from Farrington Sands Aquifer? 7 towns, 100% of South River, 100% of South Brunswick, about 60% of East Brunswick, 60% of Old Bridge, Monroe, about 60%, Spotswood, I think it's 60%, get all their drinking water. All this is on the recharge area. No one debates this point. It's just fact. All this, and now you plan to add an incinerator emitting dioxin, and by the way, the Barry Commoner cited that in chemosphere, no incinerator ever tested at any time in the world did not emit dioxin, and dioxin is cumulative over the years. It never disappears.
You've got about 30 seconds if you want to
You
ask a question.
plan on taking, and I challenge anyone to find a more toxic place in the United States of America, and the cancer statistics back us up, where New Jersey is consistently among the top in the country. We're third, our county is third out of 21 counties in the state for cancer. And recently, Dr. Lauria, the head of epidemiology at Rutgers, showed that he found a high correlation along the toxic dumps, and he found Edison and East Brunswick and Perth Amboy to have the highest cancer rates in the state. And everyone's trying to keep him quiet on this issue, but he still stands by it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to respond to that? I didn't hear a question.
I didn't hear a question either. We've heard the comment before, and it's part of what we have seen in terms of the discussion and the real commingling of the concepts of non-hazardous waste and toxic waste. This plant is addressing a commodity which we put in our backyards and we find at the neighborhood grocery store. Municipal solid waste, not toxic waste. It's not material that is produced by Stauffer Chemical or the other plants that Dr. Leitner referred to. I am familiar, I think, with the congressional record citation that you alluded to. I believe it was a committee report that was published a number of years ago and was based upon information produced by generators of chemical waste. There is a rather all-inclusive disclaimer in the front of that congressional report which waives any validity to the authenticity of the disposal references included in that report. Therefore, I think it is highly suspect. In fact, the chairman of that committee himself said that it was a general survey that had very little reliability associated with it. I do that because of your allusions to what is placed in the Edgeboro landfill based upon the report. We have built this plant not on the Farrington Aquifer. We are proposing to build this plant on solid bedrock. The plant will not intrude into the Farrington Aquifer. It will in no way contaminate the waters in the Farrington Aquifer. We're dealing with a non-toxic, non-hazardous substance that is a byproduct of affluent societies. It's called municipal solid waste. I think we have to resist the notion of putting non-hazardous municipal waste and painting it with a broad brush of waste, which includes toxics, cancerous-causing industrial wastes. We don't propose to deal with that. What we propose to do is offer a system which controls the disposal of waste so that we can monitor it, so that we don't exploit our land resources, hundreds and hundreds of acres, for disposal. When we continue to use the land to dispose of municipal solid waste, we run into the problems that Dr. Leitman alluded to. It's difficult to monitor. There are large areas of land involved, but if we don't move to more mechanized approaches such as resource recovery, we're faced with a continuation of using our land resources. Previous speaker mentioned recycling. Our approach adheres to the Middlesex County Plan, which speaks to a combination of recycling and resource recovery as the most prudent way to dispose of our municipal solid waste stream. We are not addressing hazardous chemical or industrial wastes.
Mr. Dan,
Yes, sir.
may I put something in there? I think the thing that troubles me is that when you take the most sensitive spot in the state, now, the landfill was opened in 1957. There was no laws in New Jersey regulating toxic waste or any waste. The laws were implemented in 1970. So in turn, for 13 years, many of the companies just dumped anything in the number of landfills, number one. Number two is the fact that when you have 13 years, you don't know what's in there. I asked the DEP in Trenton to try to give some accountability. Now, if you think in terms of Kimbach, they were just open 7 years. And you know what happened to Kimbach. And what I can't seem to understand is to take the most sensitive environmental area with Route 18, the turnpike, the emissions given off with lead, carbon monoxide, and many other vapors and material, and to pick this site. New Jersey is a large state. They have many, many sites that are clear, and here you pinpoint this site and try to make it a regional burning recovery plant where we have the landfill. The people of the county have been taking all of these landfills. He mentioned 9 landfills that have been closed, 2 factories that are on the Superfund. And I'm sure of that, without exaggeration, probably Edgeboro would be on the Superfund. And here you pick this ultra-sensitive spot and locate it there. And the question I would like to ask you people is why that spot?
Well, the answer, there's obviously no simple answer in selecting sites. I think siting issues have confronted this industry as well as a number of other industries in this age we're living in. Resource recovery facilities have been cited in many locations historically. They've been cited in urban settings. They've been cited in suburban, rural settings. We looked at the Edgeboro site because of a number of historic features, the facts that you allude to. It is a traditional waste disposal area. It has a great deal of capacity left in the facility, in the Edgeboro landfill. We cannot eliminate landfills by creating resource recovery projects, just as we cannot totally recycle our municipal waste. There'll always be a dependence to a certain extent on land. The fact that the landfill exists, is permitted, has had substantial amounts of investment to secure the site, to prevent any additional environmental degradation, makes it a definite asset to combine with a resource recovery facility from a whole variety of operational and design features. Trucks can come in, depending upon whether they are carrying processable or non-processable waste. They can be directed to the land disposal site or to the facility. Our aim is to serve the region called Middlesex County. This site and this facility can do that in an efficient way. That is what the planning leaders at the county level and at the state level have indicated is an acceptable approach. We did survey a number of other facilities, a number of other potential locations. Our conclusion was that Edgeboro was the most favorable site. We have, at the moment, a preliminary application before the DEP. We have a long road to travel before all the permits that are required to construct this facility will be attained. A lot of the issues that you refer to, the sensitivities that other people have referred to, are subjects that will be addressed in detailed permit applications. Air emissions impact, geological impact, wetlands impact, these are all factors that will be weighed by regulatory agencies and whether or not our selection is an appropriate selection. We've made that judgment that it is, but that's not a fait accompli. We think the site has a lot going for it. Geologically, we think it has a lot going for it from the standpoint of operational efficiencies. And we think we're right, and we think we'll be able to carry the burden of proof of that permitting process. But you'll have an opportunity to disprove us. That's what the system's all about.
may I just ask another question? So you pick the site, and your company is going to take all the liabilities that come with that site. Now, I think that you people should monitor the health of the people within the area. Case histories, the state should come in, not like Saugus, where nobody was monitoring anybody, and the health department can't give any back histories. Are you people willing to take the liability insurance, that if any of the people in East Brunswick get sick, and they could more or less prove it, that it came from Wheelabrator Frye, how are you going to monitor? How are you going to monitor these things? Are you going to monitor them? Are you going to have a lab that is going to be located as far as waste is concerned? Most of the small companies and everything, they dump most of the toxic waste right in the garbage. That's a fact that's known by many, many people. And when that goes in, you're going to burn it. And those vapors are going to spew out in a radius, going to like in a plumage. So if your company, you certainly better have a lot of insurance and things of that type and follow it through. I think to pick a site of that caliber, you have to assume all these other liabilities, and there's a number of people that are certainly very interested in that phase.
You make an excellent point in terms of monitoring the conditions in the area, and I believe the state is taking steps to create the resources necessary to do those kinds of things. This is a public health function that the state and the county are authorized to undertake. They, as part of the permitting process, if they require monitors to be installed in the neighborhood, not just in East Brunswick, but throughout the county, to monitor these facilities, it's an appropriate step to take.
We will have, just let me clarify that, we will have ambient level monitoring. The actual constituents that will be monitored are determined by negotiations with the state and local authorities, but we will do ambient level monitoring. That's a sure thing.
Well, let me say, in closing, could I give, if it wasn't for the interested parties, there wouldn't have been too much improvements. You people wouldn't have had to go back to the drawing boards many, many times to verify certain things, because the state didn't have too many criterias. They didn't have anything. And when you mention monitoring, how much monitoring do we get from the state and the county? There'll be nil. In fact, we'll have to live with you people for the next 30 years. So we might as well get it right. And we can't say that you're meeting state standards and federal standards, because those standards just aren't up to par. There are many, many factors that it's just minimum standards when it comes to incineration. It's in its infancy. Maybe when you people come around in 5 years and you're improved and went back to that drawing board about 10 or 15 times, maybe you could come up with some adequate thing. We don't want this thing in, and then the number of communities starting to be guinea pigs for this incinerator. We had the landfill for 27 years and other landfills, and I think the people of Middlesex County really had their share without even worrying about this incinerator.
You know, there's one point that you make, Mr. Hudak, in closing that I think tends to misrepresent the record of 25 to 30 years worth of operating experience behind these facilities. You're not the guinea pigs. There's a long operating history of these plants. They've functioned, as I mentioned, in a wide variety of countries and settings. So this is not a process and it's not a process treating a commodity that is undocumented or is in a prove-out stage of development.
Next speaker, please.
My name is Wesley Jacobuski, 6 Sunset Boulevard. First, I have to use the one word. I am, and we are all scared. What's going on locally? And I'll tell you what, you know as well as I do, dioxin conditions are existing so many times in Edison, so many more times again, Perth Amboy, Palm Brook, Newark, and eventually here in East Brunswick. For your own information, they evaluated the hell out of us here in East Brunswick. And with you coming over here to put up a stack which will look like Elizabeth, New Jersey, no, we don't want that. I'll tell you frankly, as far as myself and many other people in back of me, they'll tell you, get the hell out of here and stay out of here. We don't want you here. And furthermore, I like to ask the politicians of our community, which is the council and others, I hope that they will let the voters decide to save you all this time and save all them the worries of what you're going through. Let the voters decide in the next election if we want you or no. We'll save our community here thousands of dollars that they're spending. And we don't want you. Stay out here. Go down to Trenton if you want to go anyplace. You'll be better off down here. If it's good enough for us, it's good enough for the state capitol right there. They have a good size inlet. Let them go there.
They are, as a matter of fact. There will be one built in Trenton.
Or let them all go there and stay there. Last night I looked on the television and Nightline, and it scared the hell out of me when I saw what they were showing about these high build-up stacks where they're burning coal, of course. They're washing the coal to remove the sulfur. Still, that acid flies off. We're getting it over here in New Jersey and New York, polluting the hell out of us. And you want to come over here and put up a stack, what, 200 feet, and say that's good enough for us? No, we don't need it. We have enough problems here the way it is. Furthermore, if you were allowed to come in here, what is there to stop you from bringing in barges loaded with garbage? Put them up into the Raritan River here, right alongside of the East Brunswick, between Salt River and East Brunswick, and still stay there during the hot weather. We have that stink. Where will our property go as far as valuation? I hope I could make a judgment on that before that could happen. Another thing I want to tell you, as I understand, one town already locally have put into law, you must recycle all your newspaper, magazines, and different items. And eventually, that's going to go off to one town to another. We don't need you here if we have to do that. Let them take the garbage and take it somewhere else.
All right, thank you. I think you've exhausted 3 minutes, and you've asked a number of questions.
And I'll tell you one more thing,
Excuse
one more
me.
important thing. In the
Quickly.
daytime, you're going to monitor whatever you can. When the nighttime comes, you'll forget about monitoring, and we'll get all the excess garbage smell into the atmosphere, and that's what we don't like around here. We have enough.
As far as monitoring is concerned, the plant being built down here would have whatever monitoring is required by whatever agency requests it or demands it. The Saugus plant is monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. All of the recorders and charts are a matter of public record. The plant is periodically and indiscriminately checked by various agencies without any prior notification. They walk in, ask for any chart, any recorder that they choose to look at. So as far as being monitored is concerned, I think any modern facility would be monitored. The other thing that I must say to you is that the state of the art is such that Thermal efficiency and performance of the plants are quite sophisticated. Anyone is welcome to come up and observe the operation of the Saugus facility that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, meets any type of demand imposed on it, maintains constant furnace temperature conditions at any and all times. Proven, verifiable, and anyone here that deems himself an expert is free to come with whatever instruments he'd like to test it.
Well, let's go a little further. You don't have to be an expert. We'll invite anybody out. You can come visit any of the plants that we're building. You can talk to any of the people in the towns that we're building those plants. We'll be happy to show you any information we have. And that's the only way that we can verify in your minds what it is that we're attempting to do, and we'll be happy to do that.
On the subject of odors, that is a complex thing to measure. However, at our Westchester facility, we have guaranteed the odor limits at the boundary line of the plant. So that, with reference to the gentleman's inference of odors, we have guaranteed an odor level that is measured by a panel where it's non-detectable at the boundary limits.
I saw a Broadway play about 3 years ago. It was named Chicago. One of the finest songs in it was given the old razzle-dazzle. And that's what we're hearing. You're first rate, you really are, and I compliment you. But let's reflect on what we've heard. Please don't applaud, I only have 3 minutes. A couple things. Constant temperatures, proven verifiable. Can't do it. It's always start up and shut down. When you start it up, the temperatures are low. When you shut it down, the temperatures are low. If you don't mind, I would prefer not being interrupted because I don't have much time.
Like
We'll
to
do
let
it.
him finish.
We'll do it.
Okay? From everything I've read, dioxins are created by burning municipal garbage, not toxic waste, 400 to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. You create dioxins. Now, someone might say, well, gee, that's not true. It's subject to academic review. Garbage. Miami Herald, March 20, 1980. A chemical labeled by scientists as the most toxic cancer-causing agent ever created, dioxin. Officials of Parsons and Whitmore, they built a plant in Hempstead, a plant that's been shut down for approximately 2 years because it created dioxins, which built the Dade, Miami, Florida, and Hempstead plants, say that dioxin is a false issue. How could it possibly be false? Well, they go on. They say that the EPA has found and should have known that every municipal waste incinerator in the nation emits minute traces of dioxin. That's not subject to academic review, it's a fact. Let's talk about a few more things we've heard. The people from this particular organization test themselves. They tell us that their plant does not emit dioxins. Really interesting. It's called experimenter bias, isn't it? Have you ever really tried to lose weight and gotten on the scale every day and looked at that little line and kind of picked your foot up a bit? You ever done that? It's hard to test yourself. In fact, in the finest experimental studies, when an experimenter introduces a variable to a rat or a mouse, and we are the mice in this particular case, the experimenter doesn't test the mice. Do you know why? Because the experimenter is biased. Even if he or she doesn't want to be, we're all biased. So they bring in another experimenter who doesn't know the mice have been tested from the mice who have not been tested. And that person in the blind evaluates the test. That's how those tests should have been evaluated, and they weren't. Now, I think you gentlemen should see those tests. I think you should demand to see them. As a matter of fact, I think the people in Saugus should demand to see them. Do I have another minute, or do I have to leave?
You've got 31 seconds.
Okay, I'd like to see those tests, and I'd like to see you see those tests. I'd like to see Bill St. Hilaire and John Fitzgerald and Joseph Tabby see those tests so that we could evaluate them. We don't want experimenters evaluating themselves because we know the temperature isn't always constant. We know that Hempstead is shut down. We know that municipal garbage, not toxic waste being burned, but when municipal garbage is burned, it creates dioxin. So we're not concerned about burning toxic waste. We're concerned about burning municipal waste.
I did hear your cites, your sources, but I didn't hear any authoritative one, Mr. Gilbert. I heard a quote from the Miami Herald, but I didn't quite hear any scientific journals alluded to on the fact that dioxins are created when you burn municipal waste. You do cite, however, Parsons Whittemore, which operates a plant in Dade and operated a plant in Hempstead using a basically different technology from the one that we are proposing here in East Brunswick. And that technology is prototype technology. It was an experiment that was developed under the sponsorship of the EPA in the early 70s, and it was scaled up to full commercial status, first in Hempstead and second in Dade. There are a number of thermodynamic reasons which my colleagues could go at length in describing as to why the combustion systems in those plants are insufficient to guarantee the types of complete combustion which we are able to exhibit in our plants. The other points, what points yeah, the points about the lack of being
Of
the point
constant
about
temperature.
maintaining
The
constant temperature.
statement concerning the fact that this plant will start up and shut down, therefore cannot guarantee constant temperature is not true. The plant has provision for burning an auxiliary fuel in the upper portions of the furnace. This fuel will be utilized to assure that before combustion of refuse has begun, we will have attained furnace temperatures in excess of 1,800 degrees, both on startup, shutdown, or any time in between.
Stanley Fisher, 7 Branco Place, East Brunswick, co-chairman of Irate. A brief statement and then interrelated questions. Mr. Ferrante, your point about relying on the DEP to review your application, perhaps you've been out of town lately or haven't read the papers, but based upon the recent developments and historical track record of the DEP, the people in this area wouldn't trust the DEP to hang a picture, much less monitor our environment. And now my questions are, on the testing for dioxins, we gather that Wheelabrator Frye arranged for the testing to be done. Is that a correct assumption? How many tests were performed? When were the tests performed? And I'm talking about in which years and also at what time of day? And who performed the tests?
Okay, Mr. Fisher, if you don't trust the DEP, then we have to ask you to pick an agency. Under law, we are obligated to submit our permit applications to the DEP and the EPA. That's the system we operate under. Those laws are objective. They're subject to your scrutiny as well as the regulators. You have an opportunity to look over their shoulder if they're not discharging that function properly. So I'm not sure what, if you have a recommendation to make, maybe you should turn to your legislature for a modification on that point. As far as the points on measuring Saugus, Ron?
I think what we can say about the testing program at Saugus, referring to the past gentleman's statement concerning analysis of rats, we do a similar sampling. It so happens we do have a company who does environmental sampling. This company did take the samples. However, the samples were analyzed by an outside lab. So while we did use our own company to take the samples were analyzed externally. Now, we can give you the dates of testing and would offer a scrutiny of the test results.
How many since October of 75? How many tests?
I'm sorry, I don't have the exact numbers.
A ballpark estimate.
2 test periods, extensive test periods.
For dioxin.
For dioxin, yes.
Thank you. At 7 parts per billion.
70 parts per trillion.
70 parts per trillion. And the only reason it was 70 parts per trillion is there's no instrument available to sample it at a lower level. We're now attempting to take samples that can get us down to 10 parts per trillion. But again, we're not doing this because this is what we want to set the level at. We're looking to the industry to provide us mechanisms by which samples can be taken. And I hope you comprehend the level of 10 parts per trillion or 70 parts per trillion.
There's an analogy, and you know, it hit me this afternoon. This is right from Chicago. It's razzle-dazzle. 70 parts per trillion is like watching a second in how many years? 32,000 years. Now that comes from a toxicologist that we got this afternoon. We don't know how. If the equipment were available, we'd use it. We are now having internal debates, external debates with society people that are telling us that they don't know how you can get more accurate than that. We're happy to do that. We're not trying to write new song hits for Chicago, I assure you. We want to be able to satisfy you. That's why we're here.
Next speaker.
I only have one simple question, but before I ask it, I'm going to say that no matter what comes out of that smokestack, it will accumulate in the land for 10 years, and therefore your tallies will be considerably higher. However, my question is a simple one. In February, you promised us the results from your testing at Saugus. In April, you promised us again. You told us at that time that the Saugus plant was the only plant that did not emit dioxins. Of all the plants that were tested all over the world, I believe that Mr. Ferrante told us that in April. However, we are still waiting, and I would like to know definitely, not all of these figures, but when will these tests be made available?
They'll be made available immediately. Let me clear something.
Immediately was last April.
Well, okay, I can only tell you that when I go back tomorrow, we will have that information mailed to the appropriate people on Monday, on
Thank
Tuesday.
you. We'll appreciate it and hope we won't be asking for it again in another 4 months.
I hope you won't either, because we're going to get it down here. I'll have it mailed out by Tuesday. Let me make something abundantly clear to you, however. That is that I don't think we have ever said, because we don't know, we absolutely do not know whether or not the plant emits dioxin, nor do we know whether or not it will emit dioxin in the future. What we do know is that at the level that we have tested, we have not detected any. Okay, so there's a difference in making the statements.
Yes.
You talk a lot about testing dioxin emissions in this stack emissions. Have you done testing in the fly ash for dioxins?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you.
I'm Leo Mashuli. I'm here both as a physician and as a private citizen, I guess. One is that as a physician, I think one can appreciate all of the statements made that your company is trying to serve us with the best possible equipment to do the job. And I think if there were a way to provide and ensure that, that would be just what you wanted. But I think it's a sad commentary that only 10, 20, 30 years later that we find out the mistakes we made 20 years, 30 years earlier. Specifically, all the talk now about dioxins and the many people that come down with leukemia. Many people have died from leukemia. In Vietnam, young people exposed to orange agent and all this and all that. It's too late for those people. They're gone forever. And the question is that no matter how tight or how good your scientific equipment may or may not be, and all these tests, and if you had the proper people to oversee all the various tests, and if you had the right guinea pigs and the right mice and the right testers and all that, I don't know that you can I don't know that you can really believe all of this. So that the bottom line is, why put something with some hazards, the hazards being the unknown that our technology cannot answer for us today, why put it in the heart of a populated area? One that's already been delineated as being already very polluted for a number of reasons. That's a statement, maybe. The other question. The other part is, as a private person, I have the unfortunate experience of having had leukemia 2.5 years ago. Believe me, gentlemen, you don't want it. It's very nice to hear people talking about cancer, illness. It's hard as hell to fight for your life. And I'm here tonight to tell you that I watch everything I do to maintain my health. It is the only reason why I came out tonight, to make a statement that all of your equipment and all of your debates and all of your politicians and all this, there has to be a better location. There has to be a better place. There must be an easier way to protect millions of people in this area My practice is one that feeds in from a lot of specialists. I'm a tertiary care physician. As such, this area is the focus for millions of people. It is the heart of the circle. Within a 20-mile radius, there are millions and millions of people here. Why here? If you have all of the data to support that this is the best site, I just say, wait 10, 20 years until the data and the technology of tomorrow tells all of us what a bad mistake we made. Whether 70 parts per trillion is a real fact or not, whether dioxin comes out is not the fact, whether some other pollutant or toxic waste will be found to be even more toxic than dioxin, it'll be a little difficult at that time. I really think there might be maybe a better place, and maybe this is why all the people are here, just for the danger to the population at large, let alone maybe the danger that it places on their immediate financial health as to the what's going to happen to the properties and the township and all of this, and the taxes they're paying for a super town like East Brunswick, one that's going to be the center for a big stack.
Thank you.
You want to respond to that?
I think it was a statement, basically.
Okay, we're going to take a very brief break for technical change here. And if you'll stay seated, we'll be back in action in just a minute. Before we take the next speaker from the floor, Mr. Baker has a question he'd like to ask.
I'll ask the question, but after I do, I think it would be helpful for the audience and for the committee if you would describe what fly ash is, what the volumes will be, including the volume of the reactant from the dry scrubbers, which will be mixed in. Would you be willing to allow the township, and hopefully would you be willing to pay for us to have an independent lab come up and test the fly ash in Saugus for dioxin? Is that a yes, John? You're shaking your head.
We can do the quantities. You want to talk the quantities? Okay. Okay. Good.
I think basically the way we'd answer that is that while Saugus has many features, the fly ash collection system is not one that is going to be implemented on this plant. This plant will have a dry scrubber and bag house. The injection of a scrubbing media ahead of the fly ash system, fly ash collection system, significantly alters the temperature and the constituency of the fly ash, along with the quantity. Therefore, we don't feel that the fly ash at Saugus, the testing of that fly ash would be indicative of the fly ash from this plant. Therefore, see no reason to continue along that line.
Well, excuse me, can you tell us what happens to the fly ash from the Saugus plant?
The fly ash from the Saugus plant is combined with the bottom ash, which is a larger quantity of ash. And both ashes together are processed through a metals recovery system. The residues from the metal recovery system are landfilled, and the metals obviously are sold for scrap value.
So that the fly ash is buried in the landfill. Aren't you interested in whether it contains dioxin?
We have tested the landfill. You know, we've taken samples from the landfill.
Have we done
Only for EP toxicity tests, which is a test required by the Environmental Protection Agency, and have passed all of those tests. The tests require extensive evaluations of heavy metals, but do not require any evaluation of dioxin.
Well, I don't think you answered my question. Are you concerned that the fly ash, which you bury in the landfill, contains dioxin?
Yes, yeah, we're concerned about everything. The answer is yes.
Then why not
The answer
test
is
it?
yes. Well, let me try. The answer is yes. Are we concerned? We haven't tested for it. You know, we're beating around a bush here. We haven't tested for it. What we've tested for is the EPA toxicity test, and that we have passed constantly. You're asking us, have we tested for it? We have not.
No, the
Asked
question
if
that
you
was
would
asked.
test for it, if you would allow us to have an independent lab test for it.
I'd be happy to do that. I'd be very happy to do that. The day you tell me I can build this plant, I'll let you do anything you want. Okay? I mean, you know, I don't understand. I don't understand something here. I don't understand something. I really don't. You want to? If I pass the test, can I build a plant?
No, it solves one of
wait.
my concerns with the constituent
If
makeup of fly ash.
I meet every one of your requirements, I let you test. I let you look at all my output. I allow you to do anything you want with independent people, and you are satisfied with the results. Can I build a plant?
It's the wrong location.
Mr. Dennett, can I get in there?
Mr. Hudak?
We were talking before about monitoring devices. I'd like to ask a few questions on monitoring devices. For example, SOX, do you have a monitoring device at the stack?
In Saugus,
No.
Hold it on this.
Hydrogen
on the-
chloride?
Hold it on the, well, wait, the question is on the proposed plant in East Brunswick, I take it.
Are you talking about Saugus or East Brunswick plant?
On the Saugus plant?
No, but I think the relevance here is
But you think it
what
may
we're
be in
talking
East
about.
Brunswick?
Yeah, well,
No, not maybe.
address
All right,
East
now,
Brunswick.
how about hydrogen
There will be.
chloride?
Both of those items will be continuously monitored at the East Brunswick plant.
How about the gas velocity?
Gas velocity will not be monitored on a continuous basis. However, gas velocity is directly related to air volumes and gas temperature. Both of those will be monitored.
How about,
In the interest of time, would it be helpful if they listed those things which they are going to monitor?
lead? Well, I'd like to go down this list, so like, they mentioned that they monitored very thoroughly, and the
Why don't you tell us
DEP
what
and
you
the
will
federal
monitor?
government. Now,
Well-
how about PCBs?
PCBs will not be monitored.
Okay, now how about dioxins?
There's no indication now that we are going to monitor dioxins on a continuous basis.
How about you're going to have fuel ambivalent air monitoring stations at point expected, the maximum ground level concentrations of potential environmental impacts, and
Yes.
for assurance of adequate stack gas dispersion, perimeters to be monitored should be included. The instrumentation and monitoring should employ recording instruments to assure permanent records of conditions available to the inspection with all these other things.
We'll have ambient level monitor. What you're speaking to is ambient level monitoring at the point of plume maximum concentration. Yes, we'll have that. The actual monitoring stations normally are mobile stations and are stationed at one site for a period of time. It depends on the actual wind conditions. That station may be moved.
Well, and even are the resource recovery facilities such as those discussed in the guidelines in the state and county emissions bank program, will they bank excess pollution control credits, or will you buy previously banked credits? Because this area is heavily polluted, and you come in,
No.
and you're going to pollute it more. I mean,
No.
how are you going to work
There's
that
no
out through the
indication that we will,
This
there's
is-
no indication we will require offsets.
That's right.
And then another follow-up is the unknown materials in the incoming waste stream and provisions for questionable waste to be segregated and held aside and not to be incinerated, but possibly treated or disposed of in some other means. You should have a lab on the site and a testing facility to test many loads. You're going to have that in East Brunswick.
That's correct.
All the facilities to test all the
We have it.
toxics, and do you have it in Saugus?
as Dan will point out, what we do at Saugus.
East Brunswick is going to be a very easy site to control because you have the option of going both ways with the refuse. We desire to burn household waste in the resource recovery plant, and the option will always be available at East Brunswick to take the very best refuse to the resource recovery plant. Plant runs better when you burn domestic waste.
We will have a laboratory facility at the East Brunswick site. We will also have contractual relations with other independent testing labs to examine loads that are not capable of being examined at the on-site testing lab.
I just want to point out that we've been in operation now for about 1 hour, and the line of questions just keeps getting longer. As I said at the outset of the meeting, one of our objectives should be to allow as many questions as possible. So we're going to try to move this along. Same rules will apply. But please, if you're going to say something that somebody else has already said, it would be helpful if you could make it brief so that somebody else could have an opportunity. Can you have the next speaker, please?
My name is Toby Geller, 7 Mount Court, East Brunswick. I submit that you people are experts. Experts gave us 3 Mile Island. Experts gave us the near mishap at Salem. Experts just gave us the collapse of the bridge in Connecticut. In East Brunswick, experts gave us the Edgeboro landfill. We're suffering with cancer, which I unfortunately see every day. Experts gave us Route 18, which is taking an innumerable toll on our lives every day with terrible, crippling traffic accidents, which is cutting the lifeblood out of the community. I submit that we don't need this plant here. We don't need another untested plant that the experts are going to tell us is going to work to pollute our environment. This is an environmentally sensitive area which cannot take another plant such as this. I'd like to say also that experts just reevaluated our houses. We can all tell you what kind of a job the experts did there. They told us that the experts would be monitored. These gentlemen were some of the ones that monitored the experts. I'd like them to submit what a good job they did in monitoring the experts. No monitoring was done until the figures came out, and as a result, we're suffering. No, we're not going to suffer 30 years from now because the experts told us it would be safe. We want the answers before. We want many plants that have been in operation. Let me tell you something closer to our field. The experts have released several drugs recently. The FDA, the monitoring facility of my industry, several drugs which months and over a year later have killed people. Where were the experts? Were they asleep at the switch? When people come to me, they want me to be conservative and efficient. Therefore, they don't want me to give them a pill that hasn't been tested. People are going to ask me what I think about this. I'm going to tell them in no uncertain terms, do not take that pill that no one has tested before. Thank you.
Next speaker.
My name is Tony Nuzzo, and I'm a founding member of CAUSE, living on Tall Oaks Drive in East Brunswick. Question for Joe Ferranti. It's your job to keep abreast of current affairs in this community relative to your plant. Within this context, do you support Senate Bill 1976, which would call for a moratorium on garbage burning plants until state standards for siting, construction, etc. for these facilities are set?
No.
Would you continue with your plans
I
for...
will offer an explanation if someone wants to get it.
Would you continue...
Tony, excuse me. The same rules apply as for the other speakers. If you have a number of questions to ask, you have to come to the microphone a number of times.
Oh, I don't...
If you have a number of related questions, you'll ask them all at once, they give one answer, that'll be fine.
Oh, I have 2 related questions.
Go ahead.
I didn't state that up front. And I would like elaboration after I have the answer to the second.
Go ahead.
Would you continue with your plans for building at Edgeboro if you knew the people of this community voted not to have you?
Well, let me take the second one first. We're evaluating our plans on this project continuously. That would be another factor that we would take into account.
Within this framework, that was not a yes or no, I think it's absolutely incumbent upon the mayor and the council then to have a referendum immediately so that that message is loud and clear to Joe Ferrante. So on behalf of myself, CAUSE, and all the residents of this community, I urge you to have a referendum at your next council meeting, put it on the agenda, then vote for it. It might have an impact. He didn't say yes or no. We need to have it. Regarding the first question, Senate Bill 1976, you said you don't support that. I'd
Right,
like
we
to know
believe
why.
that the regulatory structure is in place, and we don't believe that regulations are best delegated to the General Assembly, which the Assembly and the Senate of the State of New Jersey, which under that bill would exercise veto power over the enforcement and oversight functions discharged by the executive branch. We think that's the way the government ought to be run.
Well, we firmly support the bill. As you know, you
I
follow it.
understand.
I think that everyone here has two critical issues to deal with within the council, the Assembly, and the Senate. So I urge you to deal with them right away, and the people can help, and they should help. You need to rally them now.
Tony, for your information, you may already know this, and for the information of the members of the public, Mr. Goldshore, who's sitting here to my left and who's our attorney on this matter, has represented the township before the legislature twice to encourage passage of that bill, I think once just within the last 30 days. And at this point, it's awaiting the vote in the state legislature. So we hope it'll be passed as well.
The principal issue still is not 1976, which we have a lot of support for, but you heard his statement regarding referendum. Let's give him something.
You have two council members here. They heard that also.
Okay, let's do it.
I tried to have a referendum 5 times, put
Well,
on
we
a ballot,
tried a
so
while ago,
I'll
too. But
try
it doesn't matter
again.
who's tried. We now have a direct response, which we never had before. It's a
Well-
maybe. So therefore, it's incumbent upon us.
Unequivocal maybe.
It's incumbent upon us to make sure we force the issue.
I
We need to force it. Force
Mr.
it.
Denon,
Well,
just a second.
Quickly, because I do want to
All
let these
right,
other people speak.
Mr. Ferrante accused me of being the only one that was against Wheelabrator Frye, and I did mention to him that in New Brunswick, it's going to be discussed at a council meeting July 5th. There was 350 signatures signed there. Sayreville, South River, most towns. And if your company wants to work in that atmosphere, I mean, I just can't comprehend a stock company with an attitude of just coming in and we're going to do what we want to do because we got a free hand. I think it's more than that, because there's a lot of people involved, and they're getting more and more and more people.
The way you describe that, Mr. Hudak, is interesting, because if anything, New Jersey does not permit anybody trying to develop or sponsor these plants a free hand. In fact, New Jersey happens to be probably the most extensively regulated state in the country in matters of solid waste. That's despite the fact that we are, and as Dr. Leitner referred to, a repository for much of the toxic waste on the East Coast. New Jersey does have a very stringent set of solid waste, air pollution control, and water pollution control regulations. This industry is regulated not only environmentally, it is also regulated as a business proposition, which is unlike any other state in the country. So that we are not permitted a free hand either to design the plant or to operate the plant. We're constantly monitored on the design, the operational functions, as well as the economic business functions, because this is regulated as a public utility in this state. We have to submit our annual reports, we have to submit our financial statements, and they're open to complete public scrutiny. So rather than characterizing what we're trying to do as obtain a free hand, I would submit that we're really subjecting ourselves to some of the most stringent and comprehensive regulations in this country. And rather than saying that Bill 1966 or 76 is needed, I would submit that what you're really witnessing there is an attempt to point a finger at a system which does contain right now the wherewithal to hold companies like us and projects like this subject to very severe scrutiny.
1976
Tony, please.
is nothing more than an apple pie bill.
That's right.
Thank
I
you.
agree with you.
I'd like to
It's
let
an
the next
apple pie
speaker
bill.
take the microphone. Before you do, just by way of clarification, Mr. Goldshore just advised me, Mr. Ferrante, that the feature of 1976 that you just stated an objection to, the legislative oversight procedure, has already been amended out of that bill. And so perhaps you won't find it as onerous as
That's good,
as
that's a
you
step
first
in the
thought.
right direction then.
Yes, sir.
My name is Philip Schiffman. I'm a physician. I live in East Brunswick. I work in New Brunswick for Rutgers Medical School. Because of the time limit and one question limit, I'd like to just make two brief comments that do not require answers, and a third comment that will lead into a question I don't believe has been addressed today. First of all, as far as the possibility of health hazards, things like dioxins and formaldehydes and other carcinogens, while I'm a physician and I'm extremely concerned about this and very fearful of this, I think it's not for the people who are raising the questions to prove that these things are dangerous. I think it's for the people who are proposing putting this here to prove without a doubt that it's not dangerous. The second comment was on the point about the startup, the development of dioxins with starting up and closing downs. And I realize that there will be a oil burner which will then release their products of combustion into the environment to keep temperatures high. About 3 weeks ago, we had a smog watch in the state, and especially around here it was bad. The highest levels of ozone, as an example, in the last 7 years were reported in South Plainfields. At that time, the DEP requested that all industries decrease the amount of hydrocarbon emissions from burning. So it appears that we're between a rock and a hard place, because if we cut down, if we turn the incinerators off when there's a smog alert, when there's smog danger, then you're going to be shutting down. But if we don't shut off, then we won't be able to help in that manner. My question. Because of the possibility of rapidly utilizing all of our landfill capacity, the state about 1977 mandated that all counties in the state develop their own plan for long-term solid waste management. The Middlesex Solid Waste Advisory Council in 1979 did issue their report that suggested, I believe, a 1,200-ton-a-day RESCO facility in Middlesex County. In that report, there's a letter from the chairman of that council stating that one of the advantages of this would be that this would permit us to continue taking care of other out-of-county traditional sources of refuge that have been going here.
You have 15 seconds.
Okay, what I would like to say, in summing up, your survey in 1982, you have to take into account the applause. That ate into my time. It
That just did too.
showed that 27% of the garbage coming into that one-week period into Edgeboro was coming from this county, the rest outside the county. As a matter of fact, the figures for total garbage were projected over a year were less than coming into the county in 1980. So my question is, for a 1,500-ton-a-day facility, how much garbage from outside of the county will have to be brought in to make your project cost effective? Is this going to satisfy the initial requirements that this state be self-sufficient in maintaining its own garbage, that is this county and all the others, or in order to have this project go, are we going to remain the repository for every place else?
Thank you.
The plant was designed to be consistent with the planning document you refer to, Dr. Schiffman. The latest estimates of processable waste generated in Middlesex County are approximately 1,800 tons per day. That's county-generated waste. Allowing for a 25% recycling capability, which doesn't exist now, but which is the goal under state recycling legislation, That would leave approximately 1,400 to 1,500 tons per day left, generated within the county for processing by this plant, and that would match the capacity that it's designed for. The plant has been identified in the county plan for processing municipal and local commercial waste. No imported waste would be relied upon for the plant. It would be serving the municipalities of Middlesex County.
Next speaker.
I'm Rich Rubin. I live in this community, and I'm a doctor practicing medicine in this community. I'm really new to this issue. I'm really not as knowledgeable as many of the people who came before me. But I really must comment on some of the things that I've heard said so far, and which I find pretty disturbing. Earlier, Mr. Ferrante was asked why the Edgeboro site was selected for the proposed incinerator. And his answer was filled with phrases like favorable trucking access and good landfill area and phrases of that sort. Now, I can understand why he uses those phrases. He works for a corporation, he's interested in the efficiency of that corporation and the health of that corporation. I'm a doctor, I'm interested in my health, the health of my family, and the health of my patients. I think it's a very different issue. We're looking at things from a completely different viewpoint. Most of the people in this room, what's been said so far, and I'm sure you're getting the gist of this. How can you not get the gist of this? We're concerned about the issue of environmental toxins and what it means to our health. It's really no good for you to assure us that you're 98% sure, that you're 99% sure that this is not going to be harmful to us. We want to be 100% sure. And given the current level of technology, it's obviously impossible for us, for you, to assure us of that. And it will not be possible now, it will not be possible for many, many years. You know, in the field of medicine, we do rely on experts, on very well-meaning experts. Well-meaning experts who gave us the swine flu vaccine, and many experts who gave us drugs that had to be withdrawn from the market years later. I'm not against drugs, I prescribe them all the time. And that's because in medicine we operate on the principle of the risk-benefit ratio. Someone comes to me with a problem, and I try to pick out the least toxic drug to treat them with that will help them with their problem. If they're not sick, I'm not going to treat them with anything, because then the benefit is, the risk exceeds the benefit, even if it's a very minimal risk indeed. Let's look at the risk-benefit ratio here. The benefit to this community of having the incinerator at the Edgeboro landfill is zero. There's no benefit to us at all. You might say the benefit is that our waste is being disposed of, but in reality, that could be achieved if the site were elsewhere. But the risk to us, at best, is a guillotine over our heads and the heads of our kids. At worst, it's a disaster for us. And my question to you, is given that highly unfavorable risk-benefit ratio, how can you possibly expect the people of this community to welcome this incinerator?
I think we also share your concern for health matters, and I have to hearken back to the regulatory structure that is in place. We're not here to impose a project without regard to health standards that have been developed from a scientific basis, just as the types of scientific bases that you use in your occupation. They've been published, they've been subject to expert scrutiny, and they are in effect right now. They govern the operation of installations that exist throughout the state. That's not to say that they're fixed, that they won't be made more tight, that standards all over won't be made more stringent. The obligation on the part of somebody who develops this plant is to meet all of those health-related standards and to respond to more stringent standards by tightening up the control devices on the facilities as the standards are made more stringent. We're not unmindful to the health impact of this project. Yes, we do look at and examine carefully the economic implications before investing, but we operate in a public arena. Disposing of public waste is a public health function, and it is subject to the full panoply of health regulatory features. So we don't do this in a vacuum. We are very keenly aware of health issues. As a company, we are in the pollution control business, so that we are even doubly aware of the state of the art, the development of new technologies, and try to keep on the cutting edge of all of those.
He asked you what benefits you're giving the town. You didn't respond to that.
Well, the benefits that we're giving the area are for long-term controlled waste disposal. We're taking waste disposal from the rather primitive methods that we've been using for a long time and introducing a methodology which can be controlled, can be monitored, and can give the kinds of assurances that we think the people of this country want.
Okay. Next speaker, please.
My name is Robert Dresnak. I'm a resident of East Brunswick, and I'm an environmental engineer by profession. I attended a meeting in April of 1983 at which Mr. Ferranti attended, and also in attendance was Mr. Robert McCarthy, the chairman of the Solid Waste Management Committee of Middlesex County. After hearing Mr. McCarthy's responses to some basic questions I asked, I'd like to reiterate my position that I think we shouldn't be here tonight at all. I don't think that we've had a fair environmental assessment to this point. It seems to me that the Solid Waste Management Committee, of which Mr. McCarthy chairs, and of which unfortunately some of our representatives from East Brunswick were rather insensitive in their deliberations, obviously, in the sense that they selected the site at Edgeboro without the benefit of any meaningful comprehensive analysis whatsoever within the county, which to me was an abrogation of their responsibilities in the first place to assess all possible sites in this county for the least environmentally sensitive site. Furthermore, the county abrogated their position even farther by allowing one applicant, one private industrial concern, to determine what would be the technology that we would have before us at this particular site. To me, this is ludicrous. In any type of meaningful environmental assessment, both the site should have been investigated, and all sites possible should have been investigated, and all technologies have been investigated. As an environmental engineer, I have mixed emotions. I feel that in order to look at new technologies, it's incumbent upon us to try certain things out. But I also recognize as an environmental engineer that we have a responsibility to the general public at large. I would furthermore point out for the public at large that as an individual who attained a PhD in the environmental engineering area in 1966, I can tell you very frankly that we didn't know a thing about environmental assessments until 1970. We were drinking water supplies without ever testing for the impacts of organic pollutants in that water supply until 1974, when it became apparent in New Orleans that many of those residents were dying at a faster rate from incidents of intestinal cancer due to the fact of organic pollutants that they were receiving in their water supplies. At the present time, our air quality monitoring and our standards are rather scarce. We monitor for something like a half a dozen different pollutants. If there's 129 new organic pollutants that we test in our water supply, the question is how many more hundreds of organic pollutants will we find from our air emissions that we know nothing about today, that no one has mentioned these environmental assessments, and there is no testing procedures for whatsoever. I would also point out to you that if we went back to 1979 before Love Canal, the word dioxin wouldn't have meant anything to us. If you people were building this plant 6 years ago, we might have had the dioxins and no one would have ever mentioned anything about it and never knew anything about it. The question I pose to you, gentlemen, is what is the dioxin of 1988 going to be? And how can you assure us that it won't be coming from your plant? Thank you.
I don't know that
We're not coming up with an answer for that.
We don't know what
he
it is.
thought that we were huddling.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
All right, before I bring up the next speaker, I counted correctly. There were 12 or 13 people standing in line. Now, if everyone takes 3 minutes for a question and gets a 3-minute answer, that will exhaust all of the remaining time we have. If you can move more rapidly than that, then there will be an opportunity for additional people to speak. If you all consume all of your time, then I just want to let people who are sitting now and not standing know that the chances are that you won't be able to ask a question tonight. Next speaker, please.
One more time, Dan Gilbert Cause. There won't be a need for a response. Couple things. If you'd like to do something after tonight, for God's sakes, get to your neighbors. Have them watch this program. Call 5 or 10 people. Let them become aware of what's happening here, and let them make their own decisions. Let them objectively evaluate the testimony we've heard tonight. We've started to see members of the medical community come out. Get your friends, form a committee. The people of this community will listen to you. We need your expertise, and we need your knowledge. So we'd like to see more members from the medical community coming out and fighting Wheelabrator Frye. It's really that simple. It's unfortunate, but it is that simple. A couple things. Experimental bias. Look at any drawing you can find from Wheelabrator Frye that shows the plant they're going to build, or Sawgust. Look for the plume. You won't see it. Why? Experimental bias. You can't trust the tester. If I were the tester, you couldn't trust me. If you were the tester, I wouldn't trust you. Where is the plume? It's in Sawgust, Massachusetts. I wish the people from Sawgust were here tonight. They'd go absolutely crazy. They'd say, my God, you're getting all that new technology. Where's our technology? What are they doing to us? Don't clap, please. Please. There isn't any time. Experts, EPA, I'll give you an expert. James Marshall, Chief of Staff for the EPA's Regional Administration in New York. Quote, this is from the local Miami Herald again. There are thousands of quotes. As far as the EPA is concerned, there is no acceptable level for dioxin. It's a rather specific statement. He's not really concerned about what people in the academic area are saying. He's sure that there is no standard. A couple quotes from the committee. One individual said, our plant emits no dioxin. Another individual said, we don't know. I believe that. I believe if you tested that plant and you find no dioxins, that you honestly don't know. I accept that. Okay? But here's another quote from a newspaper. It's amazing what you find when you read. This is Miami again, Monday, April 4th, 1983. They were interested. Quote, emissions from plants in Nashville, Tennessee and Sawgust, Massachusetts failed to meet air pollution standards until extensive corrections were made in the late 70s. Now, in the 1990s, when we find out what we haven't done in East Brunswick, Massachusetts, then we're going to come back and correct the plant here. Unfortunately, the mice have already been negatively impacted by what we didn't know in 1984 or 1983. Why? Why are they coming? Are you kidding me? We have a landfill. Other landfills are being closed. This is a piece of cake. We've got the turnpike, we have Route 18, we have a river. We are that city for them. That's very, very base terminology, but we're perfect. Why not? Or why else? Well, we wear white shirts. We do. We wear pinstripe suits, and we wear wingtip shoes, and we deliver. Because if we don't deliver, we're unemployed. Why? Oh, incentive stock options, incentive awards, salary increases. Children will go to college. Is that negative? No, it's not negative. I do the same thing. And I'll tell you something else. If you're a vice president for a company and you don't deliver, you go home. That's a fact of life. So if there's anyone sitting here, anyone who listened to this presentation, who wonders why, first reason, we're perfect for them. Second reason, they have to deliver to survive. And it is not because they're evil people. It isn't because they're liars. They're good human beings like the rest of us who are trying to survive. We should not let them survive here.
Thank you.
One other thing.
I gave you 20 seconds extra.
Go ahead.
Okay. There's an election in November. Okay?
Next speaker, please.
Get us together, please, Joseph and Michael.
Mark Lightman, physician, East Brunswick. Just a few statements. I got onto this subject when I knew of 6 cases of cancer on one block next to Pine Ridge. I mentioned to another doctor about this, and he said, oh, yeah, 10 years ago he had 6 cases of breast cancer, and all at the same time. And I called for an investigation next to Edgeboro landfill. I read the 208 report on the hazardous area at Kimbuck. They said the air is loaded with all the carcinogens you can imagine. I tell the people who are watching on television that you've got to read in the East Brunswick Library what's deposited on top of our aquifer. And then review the article in the Home News on what the potential is. It'll take sometimes 10 years. It moves 2 feet a day in the aquifer in a narrow plume. You can't test for this stuff. This is red hot. Most likely that aquifer is already dead. And this is the main aquifer, whole central Jersey. And if you don't have water, you can be in Nevada. some other things. Middlesex County, I don't blame you, Mr. Ferranti. I think you're a good, honest businessman, but I blame our county government. Our county government has let us be the leading county in the state for waste. You know that. They don't stop it, they welcome it. I have letters, we welcome garbage from New York. Sometimes I sit on Edgeboro Road and I watch the trucks coming from Brooklyn and everywhere, Long Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, dumping at Edgeboro, and our county officials, when I ask them about it, they laugh. Next, it's not our waste we're talking about. People here think that we're going to be burning our waste. It's not our waste. It's Brooklyn's waste. And our county officials aren't stopping it. And the Supreme Court decision bans, once they cannot ban garbage from another state. You could build your incinerator and you know it all can be filled by Brooklyn. And it does nothing for Middlesex County. Next, the aquifer. We can't get away from that. What happens if it's destroyed? Every one I asked says you can't test. They test, up to 1981, they didn't even test the water for any organics. And by the way, there's 400,000 organic compounds. Only 400 are tested for. When I hear dioxin, I don't think of dioxin. I think of all the others, 400,000, that we don't even know about, and all the reports in the home news by all our water specialists that say the aquifer is probably already contaminated. And I think that those narrow plumes of toxins hit every once in a while, and zingo, we get 6 cases of breast cancer all at once. And by the way, the water flows south under the aquifer, under Edgeboro landfill, right to every single community's pump. South, not north, like they were telling me, into the Raritan River. It's into our pumps, and it's probably already contaminated. Next, you're going to use 37 million gallons a day of Raritan water to cool your condensers. The whole river only flows 90 million gallons a day in the summer. In addition, when I asked your environmental specialist at the Clean Water Panel, what's the effect of the heat from you're raising it 3 degrees, the Raritan River, what's the effect of Sayreville plant? He says, we have no idea, because you're already sending hot water from the Sayreville electric plant into the Raritan. You had no answer for that. You said, we don't know. It's going to affect the fish. The Thames River, I read National Geographic, they fixed it up. Our Raritan, you're making it worse. You're warming it up, you're killing the fish, you're reducing the oxygen.
Dr. Leitner,
Yeah.
I'm afraid your time is up.
Okay.
Just briefly to some of the comments regarding the aquifer. To my knowledge, and I am familiar with a lot of the testing results, there is no indication of any contaminants found in the aquifer as a result of landfills. And I heard the references several times by Dr. Leitner, but I have not heard of any direct information in that regard. Secondly, I think that the controls at the Edgeboro landfill, for example, are state-of-the-art controls as far as contamination control. And I think we're losing perspective in terms of one thing. The resource recovery facility we're talking about here is not a contamination of the ground. It has nothing to do with that. It happens to be located on a portion of what is landfill property, but it does not introduce anything into the ground. And I wonder why that topic keeps coming up.
Ash.
Well, that is within a controlled facility, not indiscriminate dumping. It is to be deposited within a state-of-the-art sanitary landfill facility.
What is state-of-the... I tell the
Dr.
people...
Leitner, excuse me, I really don't want to get involved in debate.
Mr. Denon, can I correct that gentleman there in a way? Under Burns, Commissioner Finley, she was a woman, quoted many times, look at her background and things of that type. She questions that when there are landfills, you should look for certain high incidence of cancer. And check it out. Go into Dr. Luria at Rutgers Medical School, and then go around to some of the federal agencies. And as far as Dr. Leitman mentioned the fact that maybe there are 400,000 chemicals. You may be testing for a certain amount, but by the same token, you're not testing for the proper chemicals. You could take a well. People say, well, I'm clear. They test for bacteria and E. coli and things of that type, but they're certainly not testing for the organics and inorganics. So we're in a very hazy area. There's no such thing as perfect.
reference to that very subject, one of the key features of this facility is that it does destroy organics and, to a great extent, all inorganic hydrocarbons. We are guaranteeing the level of organics in the ash to be less than 0.2%. So as you compare that to Mr. Leitner's statements concerning leachates from a landfill, you'll very clearly see that we're reducing that significantly.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Susan Wisniewski from Sayreville. I have 3 questions. First question, considering the facts that inhalation of dioxin is a more serious threat than dioxin bound to the soil, and that there will be an ambient level of dioxin every day, which will have a cumulative effect, the 70 parts per trillion, which you say that you test it for, may still be a serious hazard. I therefore ask you, why have you ignored an afterburner? It is state-of-the-art, it's used in West Germany. You say you don't need it. Okay, second question. Have you or will you do anything concerning the stack height and the location of power plants and other chemical industries? In Sayreville, we have a power plant which is 1.5 miles on the arc from your plant. One plume will affect the other plume. Have you taken this into consideration? How will one plume from a chemical company affect your plume? Third question, if the DEP decides that it does not want to classify the ash so it can be landfilled, in other words, to leave it a hazardous substance, what will be done with the ash? Thank you.
Okay, let's take them in reverse. I think we have good evidence to show that the ash generated will meet EP toxicity tests, so that we are confident that it will be suitable for placing in the adjacent Edgeboro landfill. But that's a permitting issue, and as all 3 of your questions are related to permitting issues, and will be addressed, and will have to be thoroughly addressed. The impact of the complex plume interaction is a subject for plume dispersion modeling and final permit applications.
If you're a concerned company, you certainly will address these questions. We don't have to wait for the DEP to do it, which they're not even doing.
The stack height issue is one that is, again, subject to further analysis based upon the regulator. We have stipulated to a 230-foot stack. We've also provided modeling analysis for higher stacks.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes,
please.
and by your...
No,
okay.
let him answer the questions.
That's
otherwise-
okay.
Okay, no,
I know, but it steals time away from other speakers, and I'd like you to...
Just
We're
one-
bound by 6 minutes, though, aren't we?
It's
No,
still
you're
under
bound
6
to
minutes.
complete your portion in 3 minutes.
Your own paid consultant said that it would reduce pollution by a factor of 5 to 8. And in some circumstances, I looked it up in your application, it even is 10. Decreases it by 10 times, increasing the stack. You just can't overlook something like that.
No, it's an issue that the final call will be made by the regulator. We've laid out the impacts, but it's important to note that while it does reduce in certain cases the pollutants, the ambient level of pollutants by a factor of 10, even at its 230-foot height, it is still well within the public health standards.
My name is Dave Lipsky.
Excuse me, before you proceed, Mr. Baker had a question.
Not a question. I wanted to say something to clarify something that has been said here so that the people in the audience and those watching at home don't leave their sets or this room afraid. The town does test water regularly. We test 3 times more often than is required by any state or federal statute, and we test for bacterial content and for organic content. And we haven't found anything wrong with the water, and we're going to keep on testing. That's all.
There are a couple of analogies that were mentioned earlier, the 1 second in several years. I have a few analogies also. This comes from the New York Times. 5 jiggers of dioxin diluted in 100,000 rail cars of water is carcinogenic. That's the equivalent of 1 eyedropper of dioxin in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. According to EPA, dioxin is a substance 400 to 600 times more lethal than cyanide salts. Okay, now the question. I took a look at the model that you have over here, and I took a look at the exhibit that you have at the back of the room. The stack seems to be the highest structure on the landscape, and if you're building a stack that high, there must be some pretty awful stuff going up it to dilute the materials. Could you tell me, please, exactly what is coming up the stack and what the dispersion area is for the materials?
There's a list of regulated pollutants. There are probably 14 or so criteria, non-criteria pollutants that we have laid out in terms of concentrations as they are emitted. And then both within the stack, concentrations within the stack, and how they would react atmospherically under worst-case conditions. And that is all documented in the reports that we have filed with the town.
Related to the same question, now Wheelabrator Frye manufactures stack scrubbers, and yet you don't have wet scrubbers in this stack.
No, we evaluated wet scrubbers as part of our evaluation of all of the alternate technology and selected dry scrubbing.
Why not both?
They both serve the same function. The question is which is most effective. We produce both. We produce both wet scrubbers and dry scrubbers. The only difference is the scrubbing media and how it's introduced. The dry scrubber is proved more efficient in this type of application.
Thank you.
Yes?
I'm Mr. Shah, living in East Brunswick. Some of the questions I wanted to ask the gentleman asked before, but I think you made a statement that dry scrubber is more effective than wet scrubber. I'm an expert in wet scrubber. I challenge you. Wet scrubber alone can do better job than a back filter and a dry scrubber together.
I think it depends on what type of pollutant.
Regardless of what pollutant it is. And I'm willing to supply a system to you. I am a supplier of scrubbers, and I am willing to supply a system to you which will do a better job than what you're proposing as a system. I just wanted a comment. I'm not asking a question on it. But you are wrong. Okay? I am in the pollution control business for 22 years. That's what we're talking about. I know the companies. They are working strictly for profit and not for people. As long as they make profit, they smile. When they lose, they walk away. And that remains our problem then.
Wait, what was he saying? Well, why don't we let him complete?
I didn't ask the question yet.
Questions.
Okay, the raw material for your plant is going to be garbage. In my lifetime, I can't determine what garbage is. It's anything nobody wants. And people don't want something they don't know. So you don't know what you're going to burn in the plant. You can't control it. Anything that comes, you're going to burn. So your raw material is a totally unknown entity. Knowing or not knowing what the raw material is, how can you predict what's going to come out of the stack? If you don't know what's going in, how do you know what's going to come out? That's one question. Second question, can you identify all the pollutants that will be present in the flue gas, in the ash, fly ash, and in the bottom ash, both from quality and quantity point of view? And would you guarantee those things, that nothing else will come out?
Let me talk about that.
Let me just respond briefly with regard to the wet scrubber versus dry scrubber. We did model the two types of scrubbers to estimate the effect of the scrubbers on the ground level concentrations, which is what really counts in the end. And the effect of the scrubber is really governed by two things. First of all, what comes out of the scrubber versus what goes in which I don't know very much about, as I'm not an engineer. The engineers look at that part. My portion of it is to look at what happens after the material comes out of the scrubber. The dry scrubber puts out material at a higher temperature than does a wet scrubber, and it also puts out that material at a higher vertical velocity. In other words, the plume is ejected higher into the atmosphere in a more buoyant form when it comes out of a dry scrubber than when it comes out of a wet scrubber, and therefore the plume is further away from the ground, and you essentially have the effect of a higher stack without having to build one when you use a dry scrubber as opposed to when you use a wet scrubber.
Well, I don't know if you're done with your answer, but I heard a couple of other questions you may or may not want to respond. One was, how do you know what's going to come out of the stack if you don't know what goes in? And secondly, about the
There have
heights and
been
levels of
fairly extensive studies done of the constituency of municipal solid waste. We know in general what the makeup is. We know that it changes seasonally. We know that it changes from socioeconomic impacts. However, we do know that on an annual basis, the values of the heating content, the heat content, we do know generally within ranges the various constituent elements within the municipal solid waste stream. And it's based upon those assumptions that we determine the performance of the plant and the impact of the regulated pollutants. That's a process that depends upon sampling, direct sampling of waste loads that come into Edgeboro, that have come into a variety of other landfills throughout the state. These are sampling procedures that are set forth in state regulations and followed by us through independent evaluators. And there are other locations around the state that have conducted similar studies. So we have a pretty good idea of the basic constituency of the municipal waste stream.
Next speaker.
I'd like to ask a question that I'm sure you can't answer, but it concerns a secondary health problem that I think is very important. I can't prove what I believe, but I'm in good company, so that's okay. My name is Eli Osmond, and I'm a clinical psychologist and resident in East Brunswick. I'm also a professor of psychology at the City University of New York. And I'll limit what I have to say only to what I feel expert in. And it comes from two things. I've done a great deal of scientific research over the years, in physiology, math models, clinical psych, perception, and I believe I know very well the hazards of doing scientific research and the limits of what you can pull out of it in terms of truth. So the basic issue lies in what it is that you can't prove, okay? And as a clinical psychologist, this is the real problem, because I've been sitting here all night just listening, and I'm very scared and getting more and more disturbed. Because the issue is that I can see that you can't prove anything that you're trying to get us to believe. And even if it turned out 40 years from now that you're right, the plant is safe, I can't believe that. I mean, I personally believe it's going to be a horror that Hitler would approve of. But basically, even if it did go on for 40 years and you had nothing, you were clean after that, during those 40 years, there's going to be a terrible price to pay anyway, I believe, in human suffering, simply because of the terror and psychological stress that is going to be suffered by the people in the community around here, okay, that have to live with that uncertainty in the shadow of your creation. And I think that that's a real issue that has to be addressed as well. That's all.
I really didn't think I would get a chance to speak tonight. But when given the opportunity, I never say no. I am Lorraine Best, and I am from New Brunswick. When you gentlemen were investigating this plant site, perhaps you became aware of a development, Rutgers Village and Edgebrook, which I live in Rutgers Village, is approximately 2 miles east of the landfill. Runs directly alongside of the turnpike, the New Jersey Turnpike. We are a thriving community. However, we are an island community. We are surrounded by US 1, Route 18, and of course the Turnpike. We do get odors from the landfill. We do get odors from the Turnpike and the other highways. Your plume, if it, Lord help us, never gets up, would be very visible to our community, probably more so than to some residents of the nearer communities that are here tonight. As Mr. Hodak announced to you earlier, we have petitioned our city council and our mayor with a vast majority of signatures from the community. They will meet in session next week and discuss it fully. And I am here to tell you, for my community, that I will do everything in my power, along with the other 300 and some odd signatures, to stop you from building this incinerator. We are a frightened community, and when fear comes upon us, any other cautious human being, that upholds all. I know you have scrubbers and all this fancy equipment on your incinerator. However, we have had our fill. As mentioned before, we have had our fill in this area. Do you know, I'm living here 16 years, and that when Kinbuck was in operation, I'm sure it was a very less sophisticated operation. However, there were mornings when I woke up and there were ashes on my front lawn from books, newspapers, and the like. So you see, my lungs have had it. And I don't want to hear that I'm not going to smell anything or see anything from your plume, because it's that you have to be more concerned about, what you don't see and what you don't smell. And again, you will be hearing so much more from New Brunswick. Thank you.
We're going to take another brief break for a technical timeout. Please keep your seats. All right, we have the next speaker, please. I assume there was no response to the last speaker?
That's right.
These are statements that are being made.
Fine. If I don't expect a response to every speaker. Just one request. I've been told that some of you are standing too far away from the microphone to be heard, so if you'd make a point of standing closer, that would be appreciated.
My name is Irvin Fines. I live on Mitchell Avenue in East Brunswick. I'm responding to a comment that was made about the detectability levels of dioxin. Quoted the Miami Herald, and it was poo-pooed because it's not a scientific journal. I brought with me an issue of Chemical Engineering News, which is published by the American Chemical Society. It happens to be the June 6th issue of this year, entitled Special Issue on Dioxin. Detectability limits are now down to 12 parts per trillion, and in fact Dow has found 12 parts per trillion. And in effluent water samples that Dow has had, they've gone down to 50 parts per quadrillion. So it's not a question of detectability, it's a question of sample preparation. It's a question of whether you could extract the dioxin from the fly ash and whatever left over from the municipal waste. The other question was, at what temperature does dioxin disappear completely? Now, I'd like to read from this directly. There are a couple of passages here which I think are relevant. Dioxin is maximized and its destruction minimized when the temperature is low, below 750 degrees Celsius, which is approximately 1,450 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? At temperatures above 1,000 degrees Celsius, which is 1,800 Fahrenheit, just the opposite occurs. Formation is minimized and destruction maximized. Thus, municipal incinerators could be expected to produce more dioxins than industrial incinerators, which burn 1,100 degrees Celsius. Another relevant passage that I felt, excuse my churning, the barriers to destruction of the dioxins are mainly political and economic rather than technological. Although dioxins are chemically stable, they certainly can be destroyed with high efficiency by the same high temperatures, up to 1,500 degrees Celsius, which is 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit. Incinerator systems used to destroy other hazardous organic wastes. And finally, mere burning, however, isn't a satisfactory method of disposing of dioxins. If temperatures aren't high enough, there's a good possibility not only of failing to destroy all the dioxins already present, but also of actually forming new dioxins from the precursor compounds contained in the wastes. Now, the problem is that you refer to dioxin as one compound. There are many different compounds. There are 37 isomers of what is called dioxins. And until you can detect for every one of them and guarantee that you have destroyed it, I think you haven't got a case to build your plant here.
Well, let's be complete though. Mr. Fine, there are many isomers of dioxin, but at the same time, not all of them are toxic. I think you'll agree with that point.
I agree with that.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Did everybody hear that? That's interesting. They're not all toxic.
Excuse me, we got a chance.
Tell him, Tony. Go ahead.
He's got to have something good said.
Before you speak, I think there's more that...
We had a comment on the detection level. We agree with the detection levels pointed out there. However, you have to look at from what type of sample that detection was taken. We're attempting now to get down to the 10 parts per billion, per trillion level, but it's from a stack gas, not a water compound, so it's a method of taking the sample. We are at the threshold of capabilities.
I just wanted to comment on one thing. We've tossed some numbers around with regard to the less than 70 parts per trillion of dioxin at the stack. I want to emphasize that where we breathe, the substances in the air is down at the ground and not at the stack. And between the stack and the point at which the maximum concentrations at the ground occurs, a dilution effect in the air of a factor of 10 million takes place between the stack and the ground, so that the concentrations at the ground, if at the stack they're less than 70 parts per trillion, at the ground there will be less than, I figured it out here, 100 parts per septillion.
My name is Barbara Tiskevich, and I live in Sayreville. We've heard a lot of talk tonight about monitoring, but I'm more concerned about penalties and enforcement. I live downwind of the Edgeboro landfill. Several times a week, I'm trying to call someone to complain about the smells that we get from this landfill. When the complaints get too hot and heavy, the place where you complain is changed. The method of complaining is changed, so that the people have to find out all over again where the buck stops. But it never seems to stop. Nothing changes but how we complain. So I want to know what happens with all this fine and dandy monitoring you're going to do when you exceed your levels, when you're not up to par. What happens? You pay a fine. What happens? Somebody puts in a complaint and then they change who you complain to. I want to know what's written into the procedure now. And I tell you what I would like to see is automatic shutdown when you start exceeding your levels, period.
If we're outside of the limits that we're supposed to be, the appropriate agency that you're criticizing is supposed to come in and cause us to fix what's wrong. The way, excuse me? Well, it could very well mean shut down. It could very well mean shut down. I'd like to hit another issue with you, and it's the one you talk. We can't do anything about your mobile complaint center. That's a problem that we all live with. You know, I live with it in my town too, up in New Hampshire. It's a problem. You know, something goes wrong in the town, you pick up the phone, and you can't get it fixed. Okay, I don't know what to do about that except stay after the politicians. I can't help you.
About a garbage incinerator
Excuse
where
me?
you live?
Excuse me?
You have a garbage incinerator or a landfill but where you are? What are you complaining about?
No, I have a lot. Yeah, I have the same. I'm just like you, doctor. I have the same. I live the same
I'd like to know what
thing.
you have in your environment that you're complaining about.
No,
Is it the magnitude of what we have to complain about?
Well, I have the same landfill. I have.
You send your garbage here too?
We're not different up in New Hampshire. You know, we're really not. I live right next to Seabrook, and that's the nuke plant. You know, we're not different. Okay. Well.
If there's an answer to be given, I'd like to hear what it is, and then get on to the next speaker.
We can't help that roving complaint center, but I tell you what we will do, and we do this in all the plants, and that's the Dan Madigans that run these plants. I assure you that we will be happy to set up a situation whereby you, as the resident town, have access to the Madigan who runs the plant to do something about it, that we will create a monitoring system with this town that is outside of the regulatory body. I'll assure you of that. And that you have access to that plant manager, and you'll have access to the people who are he's responsible to, and we'll correct it.
like Saugus? Like Saugus?
I can't quite give you that option, but I tell you what I can give you. If we're causing something that should be shut down, we'll shut it down.
Why aren't
And
you
we'll
doing
give-
that with Saugus? The credibility, you know, I didn't finish what I was saying. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was
Now,
finished with that.
Mr. Chairman, as far as mentioning the credibility, we're bringing out factors in this town that you weren't going to implement in East Brunswick. They aren't implementing in Saugus. You, as a company, should certainly take this technology that we're trying to all put together and correct it up in Saugus. Are you going to correct some of the deficiencies that are there? What deficiencies?
Yeah, what deficiencies?
You've been cited a number of times.
How many times have we been cited?
How many?
Now, one is too many?
Yeah, wait a minute,
We're asking you questions, you're not asking us.
excuse me. We can't conduct we can't conduct an orderly meeting if everybody's going to talk all at once.
All right. There's one
So-
last point, that here is a Baron Vance Associated Resource Recovery, Ann Arbor Science Publishers, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 1983. I'll quote. Ash disposal, a residue handling method now practiced at the Resco plant would not be permitted in California where ash is considered a hazardous waste. Hazardous waste. So the point is, you're talking about the DEP, you're talking about the state, you're talking about the accountability. When they go into a landfill, they just check for dust flying and odors. We have approximately, 65 landfills on a Superfund. Does that mean that the DEP in New Jersey, have they been doing their job, really? Have they?
Can I say something relative to ash? We've been testing the ash residue at Resco regularly since 1975, continuously, every single month. We have thousands of tests for EP toxicity, leachability, contamination of surrounding water. The University of Massachusetts has done extensive studies on the ash. We've worked with Princeton Associates and our own company to do testing. We've also worked with the EPA on that same subject. We're doing our homework, and we make every effort to do our homework.
That law has been changed in California also. It's no longer considered a hazardous waste.
They make their decision on an individual basis.
But the point is that it's not
It's
categorically
not categorically
considered a
classified
hazardous
as a hazardous waste, as was pointed out.
My name is Michael Nissenblatt.
Before you begin, Mr. Baker.
You've been giving a lot of assurances tonight about how well your plant's going to function, how it's going to be the state-of-the-art in technology. What we usually do at the municipal level when somebody comes in and wants to develop in our town is require a performance bond. Depending on the size of the project is what the performance bond is geared to. I was wondering whether you'd be willing to put up a performance bond, say 25 million, 50 million, which would be forfeit to the town if you do not perform as you've been promising.
I'd be happy to negotiate a penalty with you. You want to talk penalties, that's really where we're getting. You know, I don't think we're ever going to be, I think that the clinical psychologist, and I'm sorry, doctor, I don't remember your name, I think he's right. There's so much fear here pervading this meeting. We're not going to be able to persuade you. I can quote from the same scientific journals that talk about that. The problem with the dioxin situation right now, it's hysterical, and nobody knows enough about it. We don't know enough about it. You don't know enough about it.
We're all scared, boy, you said it. And they're against Senate Bill 1976. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I can believe that. I can believe that we're against that bill. You know, I'd ask the medical fraternity, who sits here in number, to tell me how they got from point A to point B and coming out with new pills to take. You know, in the test that they talk about, there are risk elements also. There are risk elements here. We can't. Earlier we weren't guinea pigs. Sir?
I'd like to address that
Right. Excuse me, before we go on, there are people standing in line who would like to speak. We're going to run out of time if we don't let the speakers ask questions and the people from Wheelabrator Frye respond to them. If you want to have that, we can continue with the rest of the meeting the way it's going right now, but I would prefer to, maintain a little bit of decorum and accomplish a little bit more. You have something further that you'd like to say? Fine. Gentlemen.
My name is Michael Nissenblatt. I live in East Brunswick at 15 Camelot Drive. I'm a medical oncologist, and I work both privately as well as with Rutgers Medical School, where I'm a teacher, along with many of the other physicians who are here represented this evening. For those who are not aware, a medical oncologist is a physician who studies the source or the etiology of, the diagnosis of, and the treatment for cancers. And I think that this might be a pertinent issue for this evening. In 1980, Vincent T. DeVita was appointed the director of the National Cancer Institute in Bethesda, Maryland. And upon his induction, he, at an interview, indicated that 1/4 of all cancers were hereditary in origin, but that 3/4 of all cancers were environmental in their etiology. Of these, approximately 1/3 can be controlled by appropriate adjustments in our personal or immediate ambient environments, such as decreasing smoking, avoiding obesity, decreasing fats in our diet, etc. The other 2/3 of environmentally related risk for cancer are those that occur in an ambient environment that we are all too ignorant of. Doctors Mulvihill, Blattner, Fraumini, and Miller at 527 Landau Building in Bethesda, Maryland, adjacent to the National Library of Medicine, have written 2 books on persons at risk for cancer. It is clear that we have personally and inborn risks for cancer. But they indicated that there were hot spots in the United States, hot spots particularly in New Jersey, and hot spots in an area of Maryland, which is known as Frederick, Maryland, where there were some biological products and non-toxic and toxic substances released into the environment at a place known as Fort Detrick. The studies that these investigators have provided have indicated that from the point of risk of an exposure, from the point of the identification of exposure to the onset of a neoplasm, the risk, the duration of time, is shorter in those who are younger than in those who are older. That is to say, if a young person is exposed to the same risk as an older person, the time until that neoplasm is expressed is shorter in a young person than an old person. This was the same regardless of whether it was the radiation risk at Hiroshima and Nagasaki or the biochemical risks at Fort Detrick and other places in the United States. I went through some personal data over the last 18 months of patients of which I was referred in the area of New Brunswick and East Brunswick. Of 582 new patients who were referred, 20 of them were younger than the age of 30, representing 3.4% of the total. An additional 51 were less than 40, representing an additional 8.7% of the total. And another 69% were less than the age of 45. A total of 24+% were younger than the age of 45. East Brunswick is a young community, a growing community, where there are young persons who are at risk for the kinds of neoplasms that we are concerned about. It may be that the learned members of the board are not at an age at which they would be at the same risk of those of us who are here this evening who do exhibit that risk. Numbers. Well, numbers are interesting. I've heard 70 parts per trillion at least 1 trillion times this evening. But what about cancer in the United States? There were 410,000 deaths in the United States last year, and well over 20,000 of these were in New Jersey. The national risk for cancer per 100,000 in the United States is approximately 340. That's far higher than 70 parts per trillion. In New Jersey, the risk for cancer among women is 375, per 100,000, about 20% higher than the national figure. And among men, the risk is 425 per 100,000, about 40 to 45% above the national risk. Well, we might say these cancers are occurring in older people. The standard cancer of the lung because they're a smoker, or cancer of the colon, or cancer of the breast, the three most common cancers in the United States. But I dare say that we have the so-called New Jersey variety of cancer. There are identified 277 types of cancer in the United States. In New Jersey, however, we have seen a variety of unusually high-risk types of cancers that in the rest of the United States are rather infrequent. Some of the patients and some of the diseases that I will enumerate were shared with physicians who have been in this audience this evening. Malignant melanoma is a disease which rarely occurs in the eye, and when it does occur in the eye, the incidence nationally is 6 per 100,000, which is about 1/30th the risk of breast cancer, for example. Yet I have had the misfortune of sharing with one physician in this audience 3 such cases in the last 2 weeks. The incidence of malignant mesothelioma in the United States is 6 per million. Yet I have had the distinct unfortunate opportunity to take care of 7 patients with this disease in the last year as a single medical oncologist among perhaps 24 in the region. Multiple myeloma hits approximately 6,800 people in the United States annually, and there are 3 standard varieties of multiple myeloma, the least common of which is known as IgA, which accounts for approximately 20% of all cases of multiple myeloma. In New Jersey, an epidemiologic study done at Rutgers Medical School indicated that 50% of cases of multiple myeloma in New Jersey and in this region were due to IgA variety. And that is important because the immunoglobulin type A is that which is responsible for protecting us from our environment. Something turned it on. Well, I would like to pose the question, what is the risk of cancer among environmental experts? A question I think Dr. Geller might have wished to have asked. I'd like to ask the question, what is the incidence of cancer among those who are working in the various waste disposal units, and particularly the incidence of cancer among those who are on the board of managers? Finally, I heard a question, what is it that physicians and drug companies are forced to go through, the criteria that they are forced to go through to demonstrate that their product and the products that are released are safe? Well, I must tell you that as a medical oncologist, I need to treat people with the most aggressive forms of treatment and oftentimes rather toxic agents that other physicians don't have the need to use. And these agents can be quite poisonous and at times can cause side effects that are very difficult to prevent. However, they have gone through a lengthy history of study, 4 phases.
Yeah.
The first phase...
Excuse me, I've given you an awful lot more than the 3 minutes, and you asked the question. He is very good, but I'm not sure we'll have an opportunity here for the other speakers.
Microphone. Could I have the answer to the questions that were posed? The incidence of cancers, and whether you will do epidemiologic studies on the incidence of cancers on the board of managers and those who are employed by your corporation.
I don't think we have any answers for it.
Excuse me, Tony, before you start. I see 4 more speakers, including the one who's standing at the microphone now. 5 more speakers. I think we can manage to get all of those speakers on before the time I said the meeting would close, and I don't believe we'll have time for anyone else. So, Tony, go ahead.
Tony Nuzzo, cause, again. It's very difficult to speak. This doctor has made me sweat. I have goosebumps. And if you talked about fear, yes, there's a lot of fear. And I think that some of your concessions this evening indicate that we have more than a right to fear. And what these doctors portray from statistics indicate we should fear. We should fear for ourselves, our families, our children. My daughter's birthday is today, and she's 5. I'm worried. We should all be worried. I don't understand what's going on here. With 2 major concessions from you, no support for Senate Bill 1976, I was going to try and portray a group that could not be trusted. I was going to try and portray it by indicating that I went to Sweden and saw a plant firsthand, one that Joe Ferranti indicated was an example, the one in Gothenburg. I thought it was terrible. I brought back slides. You've read it in the press that I have. You might have seen it in the presentation. It looked terrible. It was outdated. Wooden shovels. I couldn't understand it. And now I understand the EPA says that Sweden has stopped building these kind of dumps. I read a report just tonight on that. So what I thought was state-of-the-art, or that Joe Ferranti had an example, no longer exists. I was going to say that Senate Bill 1976 is put aside by you. I was going to say that you probably wouldn't pay attention to a referendum to try and indicate your lack of credibility or trust to our community. But nothing I could say it can be said as well as that doctor said it. I think I have probably about another minute or so to go. I'd like to hear some more of him. So please, you take my time.
Well, I was going to comment on the phases that are necessary to investigate drugs, at least oncologic drugs, prior to their release to the public, and it's a concern that the medical oncologists and general physicians have as well. The first phase is one to determine toxicity, a toxicity study that is done in animals to determine what the side effects are in animals, and at the same time to determine if there is a response rate in animals. A phase 2 study is one in which the toxicity of these agents are used, in which the toxicity of these agents are assessed in human beings, provided that there has been a response demonstrated in animals and acceptable toxicity in the phase 1 study in animals. If the phase 2 study demonstrates that toxicity is acceptable among humans, and let me point out that many patients who enter themselves or who are entered for the treatment of neoplastic disorders on phase 2 studies have the belief that they are being entered on the study for the cure of their disease and to determine the response of their disease. In fact, it is to help the physician learn what the toxicity of that drug or those combinations of drugs are. If the toxicity is felt to be acceptable, that is, persons do not have excessive nausea or vomiting, or excessive renal compromise or pulmonary compromise, or bone marrow failure, typical complications of chemotherapy, then a phase 3 study is performed. The phase 3 study is one in which that drug or group of drugs which have been reported in phase 2 to be safe are then subjected to a group of studies to determine if they have effectiveness. And instead of assuming that it works as a single agent, the agent is combined with drugs which have proven value in a particular disease. For example, if a person has breast cancer or a group of persons have breast cancer, they would be treated with standard chemotherapy in conjunction with the newer agent to determine if the newer agent adds to the response rate of the standard chemotherapy. If that is then demonstrated, the phase 3 study is felt to be successful, and then the single agent is applied in the management of the disease to determine the effectiveness of that drug in a phase 4 study in a group of patients with a single group of diseases. If in phase 4 the effectiveness of the drug is proven and the toxicity of the drug is considered to still be safe, that is minimal risk-benefit ratio or a high benefit-risk ratio, the drug is then considered to be salable and marketable. 4 series of studies are performed prior to marketability. There are times that we are aware there are drugs that can be safe and which can be effective and which are in a long delay prior to their marketability. One such agent, methyl-CCNU, has been shown to be effective in the treatment of gastric adenocarcinoma. In 1977, methyl-CCNU was first investigated by the National Cancer Institute, and it passed all the first 3 phases of study and then was started on phase 4 studies. Well, the studies were published in the oncologic literature, and many medical oncologists wished to take advantage of this particular drug for application of patients who needed it.
Tony, I gave you 5 minutes.
Okay. Specific application could be made by physicians for the release of this drug even prior to marketability. However, safetiness as well as efficacy in conjunction with other agents had been proven prior to marketability and availability.
Doctor,
Thank you.
And I appreciate your disposition there. It is classic scientific methodology. But you did imply at a couple of junctions along the way some very subjective analysis, such things as if the drug does not show excessive nausea, if it is reported to be safe. These are value judgments that are made by
No,
the
I'm afraid they're not.
scientists.
You see, there
Okay.
are objective criterion in each
True.
study. The number of episodes of nausea and vomiting,
But
the
it's not
amount of
zero.
hair
In
loss,
other words-
the amount of renal compromise and pulmonary compromise.
True. But it
Objective
is not zero.
parameters which I cannot get into.
But it is not zero. Okay? It is not zero. There is an incidence of adverse effect, which we all tolerate. I think that's part of what
There's
you're
a
really
saying
driving at.
that goes in,
Okay.
among medicine, among physicians, and that is, and it usually refers to surgeons, the surgeon wounds, but to heal.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm with you 100%. That's exactly what surgeons are supposed to do. But I think the main point that you very eloquently described is the fact that on the way toward proving out a substance which will then be applied clinically, there are a number of value judgments made, and you're not talking about a zero-sum analysis. You're talking about examples where judgments are made that the risk is lower than the benefit, substantially lower and tolerably so. And that's the way scientific progress is all about. However, one amazing thing that emerges, may I finish?
Excuse me.
One
We've had a long time.
amazing thing emerges from all of this discussion, and that is the fact that all of the statistics that you quote about New Jersey, and I'm 3 generations of New Jersey too, and I've had people very close to me suffer the afflictions of this, of some of the environmental concerns that we have. And I grew up near a major landfill at the northern end of the New Jersey Turnpike, and I could smell it on the days when there was a strong prevailing westerly too. But the one amazing thing that strikes me here tonight is that those of us in New Jersey do not have one municipal combustion plant. We've shut them all down. And yet, the incidence of cancer is higher than many other states in the country, and yet we decry the fact that we have bladder cancer at higher rates. These are waterborne problems. These are problems that are associated with defouling our land. And you people can sit here and say, you want to continue business as usual. You don't want, doctor, to move scientific progress along. You're not willing to look at prudent judgments. What can be done to minimize these risks? Let us strengthen the regulatory standards. Let us keep a close look at how these plants are performed. But that's the basis for progress. But despite all the statistics that you cite, there is not one municipal incinerator in this state right now functioning. The state has done a very good job of shutting them all down. Not one. They've been shut down to the one. And yet, the situation that you described, the widespread cancer, exists here and continues to grow. And what we're proposing is a methodology for controlling the disposal of our solid waste, putting it in furnaces that we can observe and monitor, not place it on the land and burying it and then leaving it up to chance where it goes. And I submit to you that for you to sit here as a medical expert and a person well versed in scientific methodology, and you cannot tolerate the level of uncertainty that we have to exist, bears some further looking into.
Well, we still...
No, we're not.
Joe. Could I have the next speaker, please?
Yeah, it's Tony Criscola, 40 Pine Ridge Drive, East Brunswick. To get back to Mr. Ferrenti, it's true we have cancer, we have all these symptoms in East Brunswick because the DEP, the EPA, Middlesex County Board of Health, we have no one to watch the store. The landfill has 37 citations. If you or I had 37 citations, we would be in jail. We can't trust them. How are we going to trust you people? The gentleman next to you, I didn't get his name. Keo. You mentioned all dioxins are not carcinogen. That's true. But they break down the enzyme system in the person's body where cigarette smoke in a room will cause cancer. And this comes from Columbia Presbyterian. Getting back, this is the democratic society. The majority of the people of East Brunswick don't want Wheelabrator Frye in town. For you people to put up such an argument, in 5 years, Edgeboro would be closed. We wouldn't have to put up with the air pollution or the pollution from the garbage dump. If I were the owner of a landfill, I would give the whole landfill away to people like you to come in so I could extend the life of the landfill for 25 years. Why should we have to do that? We don't want the landfill, and we don't want Wheelabrator Frye in here. The only reason you people are coming in here is because a sweetheart deal, some type of incentive had to be made to you people to put up a fight like you are putting up now. You probably had to be given the land free and probably had to be subsidized in building the plant.
I'm glad you said probably.
I said probably. And my
Well, why did
probability...
you say definitely? That's the question I would like to raise. Why do you make an assertion, why do you just make an assertion to kind of imply things? Why don't you get factual? The fact of the matter is, we did not get the land free.
How much
Okay,
did you
that's
pay
a
for
fact.
it? Is it documented?
Yes, it'll be.
All right, would you people
completely
be
open
willing to
document.
put up in an escrow account in East Brunswick Bank an amount equal to what the plant is going to cost? We will use that money to monitor the plant stack. If any dioxin is found, you people close the plant, pack your tent, and get out of town.
We can't pack a tent. We're not gonna pack a tent.
Pack the plant.
My name is Craig McLaren. I'm president of CAUSE, Citizens Against Unsafe Environments. I've been listening all night to the comments and the questions, and once again, we all realize what a complex issue this is, and that we could have these meetings from now until Christmas, and we might not answer all the questions. And I got to thinking about what I could say. It's not so much a question, but I'd like to, if I may, considering the time of the evening, to try to summarize in a different way what we're all feeling here tonight. Yes, we're opposed to garbage burning and a garbage burning plant in East Brunswick. As a matter of fact, we're opposed to garbage burning in any residential community in the state of New Jersey. We believe that this opposition is based on facts, not all the facts, but we think it's based on facts, and the demand for more information, which is critical to our future health and welfare and that of our children and our children's children. When we started CAUSE, we adopted the slogan, "Don't let haste lay waste to our future." Never before has this thought been more relevant. New Jersey has produced one of the most disastrous records of pollution in the country. While many of our environmental problems have resulted from years of indifference and neglect, much more can be blamed on poor and hasty planning. No one in CAUSE, nor anyone in the many other similar organizations that have formed in every county of the state, would disagree that we have to find a better way to deal with our municipal solid waste, the standard euphemism for garbage. And we are not alone. The search for and the implementation of a solution promulgated by an act of Congress is a matter of national priority. So what, you might ask, is all this fuss about? We believe that good prior planning and reasoned judgments based on the proper evidence will provide the kind of solution our garbage problem we all seek. There are no substitutes for common sense and prudent action. The need for a cautious approach to our garbage problem, one that will strike the balance in favor of the human factor and the environment, has never been greater. Yet we're faced with the imminent possibility of a giant garbage-burning incinerator, not just here, but throughout our state, a solution which many learned people from all manner of scientific disciplines question the safety to human life and the environment. The solution to our garbage problem cannot be deemed good just because it's handy, because it's easy. We believe it is a far wiser course of action to investigate solutions independent of any concerned industry. There is no law that says we must have these so-called resource recovery plants that burn garbage to heat water to steam, which in turn is used to generate electricity. But we need the time to properly evaluate garbage burning and to thoroughly investigate the alternatives. Indeed, the solution to dealing with our garbage problems is complex and it's urgent. But we must not hastily adopt a solution that might become a woeful legacy to future generations.
Craig, you have 30 seconds.
Fine. We hope that you and what you've heard tonight will help you to understand our concerns about this plant And I'll leave you with one more thought, and it's our fervent hope that you will share with us and with thousands of people across the state the belief that we as citizens have the right to expect, which was the basis of the recent Supreme Court decision on nuclear power plants, that we have the right to expect the resolution of all of the issues of garbage burning before the first plant is built in this state. And that's why we favor Bill 1976, and that's why we would hope that you would too, so that you know that we're watching and you're watching us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Shah, I heard from you people and from various people in the audience that we don't know a lot of things. You have a plant in Saugus. You tell me that it's different than what's going to be in East Brunswick. Why is it different? Why is East Brunswick going to be different than Saugus? Because Saugus doesn't work?
Would you like an answer?
Oh, first off, yeah.
Okay, fine. When,
So revise it and modify.
Saugus was built at a time when the regulatory standards required a certain level of pollution control. They are changing. The
Okay,
plants
now-
are modified according to those standards. That's why the plant in East Brunswick and the plant, probably the plants that'll be built throughout this state will look different.
Yeah, but you tell me that your company is a responsible company and believe in welfare of the people. Why don't you modify Saugus to present technology?
That's the standard that's required. Go ahead.
Let me go next. You people say that you don't know a lot of, you don't have a lot of answers. I suggest a solution. Go modify Saugus to the same technology you're trying to put in East Brunswick. Take the garbage from here, run it there, run the test, and tell us what will come out of it.
Will you live up there? Dr. Shaw? Dr. Shaw, you move up there too.
Because after all, we are going to pay for it anyway. So why don't you do it?
That's all that we need to do.
Now, I got a few other things here that you made a statement regarding, you didn't answer my first question I asked, which is very
Well,
important.
if you've got some questions, would you ask that question?
I asked, they don't have an answer, so I'm going to the next one.
We don't.
Wait, what was the
And then we'll have to
question
give the floor to the next speaker.
What was the
We'll be
question?
happy to
I
answer
asked the questions, are you willing to modify Saugus to the same technology as East Brunswick plant, take the garbage from here, run it there, and tell us what will go in and what will come out?
No.
No.
So you don't want to do it?
Okay, we answered your question, though.
Absolutely not.
Okay, now, next question. I asked your first question before. Are you going to define in writing what's going to go into the plant and what's going to come out of the plant? And are you
Yes.
going to guarantee that nothing else will come out?
Yes, we will. If you will guarantee me that you abide by the contract of what it is that that plant will accept, I will guarantee you what comes out.
Now, wait a minute, we are not trying to put anything into your plant. Hold on a second, we are not trying to put anything into your plant. You are taking something into the plant.
But will you guarantee that?
So you guarantee that you will take what you want to take.
No.
Why don't you?
Wait, Doctor, if your municipal officials, who
But-
we will deal with, allow me, please, if your municipal officials will abide to the very letter of the contract, which will stipulate exactly the kind of waste that we will accept, I will guarantee you the output.
The
See, first
I don't
of all, we
believe the
don't want
municipal
anything to
officials
go
will
in-
have any control over that.
They absolutely will.
No, I think you're in the wrong state.
With municipalities. They will be, the contracts that we sign with
No.
municipalities.
Mr. Wheelabrator Frye.
You mean all the municipalities?
Sir?
You mean all the municipalities? Well, we can't control that very well, so.
Mr. Wheelabrator Frye, first of all, you want to put the plant to handle our garbage. We don't want you to handle it.
Okay.
You want to do it, you find out what you're going to take in it. Don't ask us what we're going to put it in. You find out.
All right.
So it is very important for us to know what you're going to burn in it and what's going to come out of it.
I'm going to burn what you put out for the garbage man to pick up.
So go and get the garbage from somewhere else?
We will tell you exactly. We have a contract that says we will take the following kind of waste, okay? And we have the municipal officials read it and sign it, and they guarantee that they'll send it to us. But I
I'm
know as well
sorry.
as you
You are
know-
going to ask Mayor Fox to tell you, guarantee
Please
what's
let
going
him
to burn
answer
in
the
it?
question. Please. We can't get anything accomplished unless you let him answer what you ask.
I think you finished answering question.
No, I didn't.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Please let him finish it, and then I'm going to ask you to relinquish the
I
floor to the
can't,
next speaker.
I know as well as you know that that elected official can't guarantee what goes in there because you and I are responsible for what goes in there. You and I make our own rules. You and I do this. Oh, yes, we do. We don't?
I do.
Okay.
Because I don't know the answers, that's why I don't want a garbage incinerator.
Okay.
Thank you.
But you think you know the answer, you want to burn it.
All right.
All right, we have one more speaker. I'd like to give the floor to him.
Hi, my name is Frank Daydone. I live at 47 Ainsworth Avenue in East Brunswick. And I really don't have a question. I have some questions strictly for our government officials and elected officials. I think it's fair to say to the people from Wheelabrator Frye that they've done a great job. They've defended and they've been very gracious and they've gotten themselves out of all kinds of inconsistencies and change in design. And I've come to about 30 of these meetings over the last 18 months or so, I guess. In fact, I was at the very, very first one at the Lutheran Church on Cranberry, at which meeting Wheelabrator Frye contended that they were going to meet all the state DPA requirements, and then the very second meeting, there were no DPA requirements. So in all fairness to the Wheelabrator Frye people, I think they've been presented them very, very well. However, in fairness to the people, I don't know why our elected officials have had these debates between the citizenry of this town and the corporate offices of a profitable public corporation. It doesn't kind of sit well. In fact, after 30 of these things, I'm really starting to take offense. We've heard doctors, we've heard lawyers, we've heard chemical engineers, sanitary engineers, environmental engineers, we've heard chemists and biochemists. There's no one in this room, no one in this state that can deny that this is a very sensitive and dangerous environmental area, town. Can anyone deny that? No. How could the elected officials of our government have put us in a ring, put the citizens of a town in a ring with the corporate offices of a profit-making company?
I'll answer
now,
when you're done.
In defense of these people, we've heard about precipitators, we've heard about scrubbers, we've heard about grates, we've heard about trucks, we've heard about scales, we've heard about PCBs and dioxins, and I think that the citizens have done their fair share. I'd like to know what our government, who collects our taxes, is going to do to now get in the ring with them and prevent. I don't believe that any form of pollution whatsoever, and it's really unfair, and I don't know why all these good people have been putting up with it. There should not be a new drop of pollution added to the state of New Jersey, and I don't know why to taxpayers we have to have a kangaroo seminar on chemistry and environmental protection. For a year and a half, this is mind-boggling. The state of New Jersey has got to hang their head in shame, and this whole dissertation here for 2 years is utterly ridiculous. The citizens of New Jersey should outright demand that one new form of pollution not be added to this state. And beyond that, if these people come up here and prove to every chemist and every engineer and every medical professional here that they are not going to add a single drop of pollution, what about their trucks? Nobody's addressed that. What about the noise pollution of their trucks? Now, the doctors here apparently feel to noise pollution is contributed to heart disease. What about reducing the noise pollution? What about reducing
Let me try
truck
to answer
traffic?
your question. So you've already had more than the 3 minutes that everybody gets. And I think it's a good question with which to end the meeting, and I'll try to answer it and use that as a close.
Can I just summarize?
Quickly.
I think that the citizens of the state of New Jersey should demand of their public officials a program. I think they should put an absolute immediate halt to all pollutants, all industrial, commercial pollutants in the whole state, an immediate halt. Enough, spare our time. We've been here for a year and a half arguing about how many parts per trillion or parts per billion. It's meaningless. Stop it all immediately. And come up with a game plan for each particular, for the chemical disposal, for the municipal disposal. And with that, I rest my case. And please don't make me come to any more of these.
All right, I didn't make you come. Let me try to put this in perspective for you. The reason that these meetings were held, the one in February and the one this evening, was because we had many members of the public who asked to have such meetings, who wanted more information, who wanted an opportunity to confront the applicant, who wanted to, to ask questions, to find out more, and to have their say as well. After the meeting in February, I wasn't one personally who wanted to have another meeting. We arranged with the Chamber of Commerce, and we approached the League of Women Voters to see if they wanted to hold forums where people could have that same opportunity. The Chamber did. The local league is not a functioning organization at the moment, and they did not. There's no reason for these meetings to be held for the committee's purposes. They were held only so that those of you who wanted to come out and ask questions and hear more could do so. There was no other reason. And we don't intend to hold any more forums like this with Wheelabrator. We will hold our regular meetings, which we hold generally on the second Tuesday of each month, and you're more than welcome to attend those, and we would encourage you to do so. Now, with respect to what we're doing about the application and what your municipal officials are doing about the application, first of all, there is no application. There is a preliminary application that was submitted to the state in early 1982. Since that time, nothing has been submitted to the state, and we don't have anything in specific to react to. However, in order to prepare for that, we've been very active with the state legislature. We've hired an environmental attorney who sits next to me here. We've hired an authority in the area of environmental medicine. We've hired an authority in the area of environmental pollution controls. We've hired authorities in the areas of traffic control. And they all will assist us in reviewing the application when and if it is submitted, and in our fight to prevent the plant from being built. There's an awful lot going on, and an awful lot of your money being spent. I think there was some $30,000 spent by the municipality in 1982 to fight this application. They so far appropriated $60,000 to start with in 1983, and when that's exhausted, and I'm sure it will be, then we'll be back to the council suggesting that more monies be appropriated. There's an awful lot going on, and if you want to see no more polluting facilities built in the state of New Jersey, the place to go is not to your municipal officials, is to go to your state officials who have some control over that, although I think it's a little bit unrealistic to expect that there'll be absolutely no more pollutants in the state. You'd have to require that there be no more automobiles, for example. But, okay, no new forms, okay, perhaps. But the point is that there's only so much that can be done at the municipal level, and I believe a great deal is being done, and a great deal will be done. The people who sit on this committee don't do it because it's fun. We do it because we feel there's a need for it. We're all volunteers, and we feel that the community wants us to pay close attention to what's happening with the application, and that, that we'll do the best possible job we can. And I think that we've got a reasonable chance of seeing to it that this facility is not built, and that's what our objective is. I want to thank you for coming out this evening and for helping us to run an orderly meeting. I hope you found it helpful. I hope you found it informative. Thank you all.